Chapter 669. Assassination. Chu Yang had eliminated 6 out of the 10 groups of the Soul Devourer clan and the Thousand Demon sect. Now, he was already familiar with them. His control of his emotions and mental state had become more and more skillful. Before he took action, he would no longer worry about his gains and losses. Although the assassination this time was a little different, it was the strongest group of the 11 groups of the Soul Devourer clan and the Thousand Demon sect, and the Soul Devourer elder was even more powerful. However, after Chu Yang eliminated 6 out of the 11 groups, his strength was also rapidly increasing. The opponent was stronger, and he was stronger now. The target of the assassination was no longer the trash from before. Chu Yang was also not the Chu Yang from 3 days ago. A scholar who had been away for 3 days had to be looked at with new eyes. Chu Yang was no longer an ignorant person. The first obstacle of the assassination was the array. The protective array of Fengmao City was already controlled by the Soul Devourer clan and the Thousand Demon sect. At this moment, the array was completely activated. Fengmao City seemed to have been isolated from the entire world, completely separated from it. Fengmao City was now an isolated and helpless small world. Screams, pleas, cries, cold laughter, cold-bloodedness, killing people like flies. All kinds of things highlighted the killer and the killed, becoming 2 extremes. Slaughter, blood, and death were like a tie that connected the two. Chu Yang looked through the transparent array cover of Fengmao City and saw that every single one of the killers had their faces covered. Most of the martial artists in Fengmao City had already been slaughtered clean. They were now crazily slaughtering the defenseless people in the city. The way they killed people was extremely fast. Releasing their soul pressure and enveloping them, they died. How could these unarmed people in Fengmao City resist the soul pressure of ascending soul realm martial artists? The killers kept releasing their soul pressure. As they walked, it was as if they were holding a rag and wiping off the dirt on a table. They kept wiping away the past and creating one death zone after another. Chu Yang could only watch. Before he killed the Soul Devourer elder and the Thousand Demon elder, he could do nothing about such a massacre. His gaze quickly fixed on the 2 figures in the sky above Fengmao City. The 2 of them were also wearing masks and were dressed in black robes. They were about the same height and build. In fact, Chu Yang couldn't tell which one was Elder Soul Eater and which one was Elder Qian Mo, but the one holding the Soul Eater gourd should be Elder Soul Eater. The Soul Devourer gourd was the most precious treasure of the Soul Devourer clan. It shouldn't have fallen into the hands of others so easily. At that moment, Elder Soul Devourer was controlling the Soul Devourer gourd with all his might. The mouth of the gourd was like a black hole, exploding with a great suction force, sucking all the souls in the city into the gourd. Elder Qian Mo of the Thousand Devil sect was in charge of monitoring the situation in Fengmao City. The 2 of them had a clear division of labor. Brother Li, the soul-devouring gourd is already filled with 10 million souls. However, this is not the upper limit of the soul-devouring gourd. However, if I want to drive the soul-devouring gourd to continue devouring souls, the burden on me will be extremely great. I can only leave the rest to you. Elder Qian Mo should be Li XX. When Li XX heard this, he seemed to smile. Anyway, there was a smile in his words. Brother Zhong, don't worry. I can't guarantee that there is no living thing in Fengmao City. However, I can guarantee that there is no living thing in Fengmao City. There is no living thing that can reveal our secret. Then, I'll leave it to you, Brother Li. As soon as Elder Soul Eater's voice fell, his whole mind was completely focused on the soul-devouring gourd. Under his control, the soul-devouring gourd trembled slightly and made a slight buzzing sound. Circles of ripples appeared in the void. Very good, this is the best opportunity. When Chu Yang saw this, he decided to take action immediately. He fiercely grasped the 7 kills sword in his hand, and all the aura on his body was restrained. At this moment, his essence, spirit, and soul were also restrained and concentrated on one point. At this point, there seemed to be a figure appearing, as if it was walking out of the endless darkness. When it walked out of the darkness and into the light, it was completely invisible and without a trace. This figure seemed to be something that couldn't be exposed to light. When the sun shone on it, it was completely obliterated, without even a trace of green smoke. Chapter 670. No one knew whether Chu Yang had done it or not. No one knew how Chu Yang had done it either. Suddenly, a hole appeared in the transparent barrier of Fengmao City. Chu Yang had appeared behind Elder Soul Eater without anyone noticing. The 7-killing sword had already pierced through Elder Soul Eater's head. The Soul Eater gourd immediately stopped trembling. The black hole at the mouth of the gourd disappeared along with the suction force. Chu Yang reached out and grabbed the Soul Eater gourd. The path to heaven appeared under his feet. He took a step forward and escaped. At the same time, another hole appeared in the barrier. Who is it? It was only at that moment that Elder Qian Mo managed to react. When he looked to Elder Soul Devourer, he saw that Elder Soul Devourer's eyes were bulging out. His eyes were like those of a dead fish. It was as if Elder Soul Devourer did not realize that death was imminent. The original position of the Soul Eater gourd was now empty. The souls that were sucked in seemed to have disappeared as soon as they arrived. They did not even have the chance to enter the underworld. When did this happen? How did this happen? Elder Soul Eater did not notice at all. Elder Qian Mo was horrified and his soul almost left his body. Such an assassination made him tremble in fear. He was almost scared out of his wits. Then, he reacted. Although Elder Soul Eater's assassination technique was brilliant, his strength was definitely not as good as his. Otherwise, he would not have escaped. Who is it? With a boom, Elder Qian Mo was furious. His aura burst out, and the void there seemed to be a giant beast causing trouble. It was completely stirred up. His angry roar resounded through the world. All the slaughterers in Fengmao City could not help but look at Elder Qian Mo in the air. At that moment, they saw Elder Soul Eater's corpse falling from the sky. All the slaughterers were stunned. They seemed to be doubting the scene in front of them. It was as if they were saying that Elder Soul Eater was also a human. With a slash of the sword, he would die just like the people they had killed. Boom. Then, all the slaughterers saw Elder Qian Mo fly away like a meteor. The slaughterers saw the deployment barrier explode. In the blink of an eye, they lost sight of Elder Qian Mo. It seemed that Elder Qian Mo had also escaped. Fengmao City was in chaos. At this moment, each and every one of them seemed to have become the people who were being slaughtered in Fengmao City. Panic, fear, and shock caused Fengmao City, which was almost like a dead city, to suddenly have a bit of noise and a bit of liveliness. Elder Qian Mo chased madly, releasing his domain to its limits. Everything within a radius of 9,000 feet was within his perception. He suddenly discovered a suspicious figure and immediately shot over. Before it arrived, he looked up and saw that it was a fake person. There were also words on it: "Mountains and rivers will meet again. The mountain is long and the river is far away. We will definitely meet again someday. Please don't send me off 1,000 miles away." Rumble. The dummy and the message instantly exploded into dust. The ground there also exploded. Dust soared into the sky, turning that place into a world of dust. Who is it? Who is it? His furious voice rumbled like thunder in the world. At this moment, he was so arrogant that he even dared to leave a message. In his words, he even threatened him: "I will definitely come for you again. Just wait for your death." In his fury, Elder Qian Mo chased blindly for a while. Soon, Fengmao City disappeared from his sight. As he vented his anger along the way, his emotions slowly calmed down. At this moment, a voice came from the direction of Fengmao City. "Elder, something bad has happened." Then, Elder Qian Mo saw a masked person running at full speed towards him. Soon, he was less than 3 feet away from him. What happened again? Elder Qian Mo was in a terrible mood. He was angry, but his pupils suddenly shrank. He finally realized that something was wrong. Although the person was wearing a mask and looked exactly like the slaughterers in Fengmao City, his clothes were completely different. Everyone who participated in the massacre in Fengmao City was uniformly dressed in black. However, it was already too late. When the newcomer was only 3 zhong away from him, his speed suddenly increased and he suddenly disappeared. By the time Elder Qian Mo was about to react, A sword had already pierced through his throat. A soul-destroying force burst out from the sword, instantly crushing his remaining vitality. He died instantly and fell to the ground with a bang. Chapter 671. Swish. After Chu Yang killed Elder Qian Mo, he immediately left. In Fengmao City, he did not plan to let any of the slaughterers go. He wanted to kill them all and extract their souls. He was like a gold rock bird flying in the air. He returned to Fengmao City in an instant. With a thought, his consciousness entered Fengmao City's great formation and easily controlled the entire formation. Originally, Fengmao City's formation was controlled by Soul Devourer clan's Elder Qian Mo and Thousand Devil Sect's Elder Qian Mo. Now that the two of them were dead, the great formation was like an ownerless object. It was easy for Chu Yang to control the great formation. Buzz. With a buzzing sound, the entire Fengmao City's formation was activated. Immediately, the entirety of Fengmao City was within Chu Yang's perception. Where were the survivors? Where were the slayers? Everything was within his perception. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Strange noises continued to be heard. Chu Yang had activated the formation to isolate the entire Fengmao City. It was as if a huge cage had appeared out of thin air in the middle of Fengmao City. Many people who were in the middle of a massacre found that they were trapped. The soul pressure they released was completely isolated by the formation. When they realized that something was wrong, an indifferent voice resounded throughout Fengmao City. Those who are in danger, move to the east gate of Fengmao City. Those who are not in immediate danger, stay where you are and do not move. The voice paused and then resounded again. All of you, listen well to Grandpa Chu. I don't care if you are a scum of the Thousand Devil Sect or a scum of the Soul Devourer clan. I will give you a chance to die quickly. All of you, kill yourselves immediately. If not, I will do it myself. I will take your souls and burn them for 81 days. I will make you beg for death. Boom. All the slaughterers in Fengmao City heard the angry voice that sounded like thunder. It was as if they felt the wrath of the heavens. All of them were shocked and terrified. However, in just a moment, they calmed down after the Soul Devourer clan's elder was killed. Immediately, they shouted to kill. Kill our way out. He can't kill so many of us. Most of us will be able to escape. If we can't escape, we will kill as many people as we can in Fengmao City. Kill the people from the Soul Devourer sect and the Thousand Demon sect who participated in the massacre were all vicious and merciless people. After sending voice transmissions to each other, they immediately responded. PH, you won't shed tears until you see the coffin. A cold snort resounded throughout the entire Fengmao City. You 11 people, I've already slaughtered 7 of you. I've seen this many times. If you have the ability, kill another one for me to see. His voice became even colder, pressing down from the sky as if countless hailstones were falling down. From now on, if you can kill one more person, I will change my surname to yours. Dang, dang, dang. The melodious sound of a bell immediately resounded. It was accompanied by the sound of a dragon's roar that resounded through the whole Fengmao City. Then, in Fengmao City, a huge bell could be seen flying across the sky. It landed on the east side of Fengmao City and formed a domain. Then, the sound of a sword could be heard. A divine sword floated in the west side of Fengmao City. Then, a diagram appeared in the south side. The voice that seemed to come from the sky resounded again. Little 5, Little 6, Little Guari, you 3 are in charge of the north side. In the voice, there were special instructions for Little 5. Little 5, if you want to dig out people's brains or eat people's brains, I will allow you to do so today. Swoosh, swoosh. Chapter 672. Kill. Today, let me see how capable this so-called Grandpa Chu is. That's right. Let's see whose surname you're going to take today. The Soul Devourer clan and the Thousand Devil sect also went completely berserk. Their battle with Chu Yang immediately erupted. Dang, dang, clang, 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 buzz, buzz, buzz. The 9 dragons' bell, the 7 deadly swords, and the formation emitted a shocking aura from the 9 dragons' bell, the 7 deadly swords, and the formation to the east, west, and south. The three combined with the formation to completely control the three directions. Only the north side was a little thin. Little Guari's cries, Little Black's roars, and Little Five's sinister laughter rang out from time to time. Chu Yang, on the other hand, used the grand formation to move around the entire luxuriant city, madly killing the people of the Soul Devourer clan and the Thousand Devil sect. From time to time, he would support the north side of Fengmao City. Little Guari and the others were also as steady as a rock. It had only been a short while since the start of the battle, but the result was clear very quickly. This was a one-sided slaughter. Chu Yang slaughtered the people of the Thousand Devil sect and the Soul Devourer clan, just like how the two sects slaughtered plentiful Lush City. "We're saved. We're saved." Cries of joy, as well as roars of anger, soon rang out in Fengmao City. The people who were originally hiding in Fengmao City saw that Chu Yang, alone, was able to render the slayers helpless. They couldn't kill another one. Chu Yang was so powerful and so ferocious that they were full of confidence in him. So, they came out one after another. "Kill. Follow Grandpa Chu to kill the enemy. I'm going to eat this beast alive. You demons, you can't be so arrogant." Within Fengmao City, many unarmed and furious people were like tigers released from their cages. They actually took the initiative to kill the people of the Soul Devourer clan and the Thousand Devil sect. This suddenly increased the pressure on Chu Yang, but he couldn't stop them. They needed to vent. Fortunately, the people of the Thousand Devil sect and the Soul Devourer clan realized that the situation was not good. They felt that they could not be left alone and allowed Chu Yang to kill them one by one and collect their souls. They made the wrong choice and gathered together to fight to the death with Chu Yang. This allowed Chu Yang to save a lot of energy. At the same time, he also secretly let out a sigh of relief. The entire Fengmao City was too big. Even with the help of the Fengmao City's grand array, it was still very difficult for him to take care of everything. As for the people from the two sects who had gathered, Chu Yang's explosive flame, wind drill, 5 elements thunderous hand, and various other techniques all smashed into them. Immediately, miserable shrieks rang out as they were either blasted to death, drilled to death, or struck to death. Blood and flesh flew everywhere. After that, Chu Yang's terrifying soul pressure once again crushed over, completely killing the people of the two sects. The final clearing was even easier. Chu Yang killed all the people of the Thousand Devil sect and the Soul Devourer clan in Fengmao City, not leaving a single one alive. After killing them all, he directly left. Of the 11 groups of the Thousand Devil sect and the Soul Devourer clan, there were only 4 groups left. After Chu Yang killed the Soul Devourer Elder and the Thousand Devil Elder, these 4 groups were no longer a threat to him. After Chu Yang left, the entire Fengmao City's grand array was also removed. The entire Fengmao City once again appeared in this world. A strong smell of blood spread out from Fengmao City. With the sharp sense of smell of martial artists, they could sense it even from far away. When people rushed to Fengmao City, it was as if a world of death had appeared in front of them. It was also as if a world of survival had appeared in front of them. A world of blood slowly unfolded in front of them. Blood flowed like a river, corpses after corpses, burning houses, collapsed ground, everything was in ruins. Every scene was horrifying to behold. The cries, curses, and cries of Fengmao City also reached their ears. Soon, the news of what happened in Fengmao City spread like a storm. And the Grandpa Chu that the people of Fengmao City spoke of was the eye of the storm. They could foresee that the Eastern Wilderness would be in turmoil. One of the 4 great sects of the Eastern Wilderness, the Soul Devourer clan, had actually colluded with the Thousand Devil sect and crazily slaughtered an entire city. They could also foresee that this so-called Grandpa Chu would be known throughout the Eastern Wilderness and spread throughout the Eastern Wilderness. However, this Grandpa Chu would also become a must-kill target for the Thousand Devil sect and the Soul Devourer clan. Chapter 673. Yang Ziming wanted to go to the extreme. He knew what Chu Yang was doing now, and he also knew what he was going to do. Chu Yang was killing and saving people, and now, he wanted to take revenge. The Gold Rock Saint Sun was his enemy, the 7 demon generals were his enemies, the 1000 demon sect was his enemy, and so was the Soul Devourer clan. Would he be able to take revenge after killing the Gold Rock Saint Sun and the 7 demon generals? No, definitely not. The Soul Devourer clan was the main culprit. As long as the Soul Devourer clan was not destroyed, his hatred would never disappear. As for destroying the Soul Devourer clan with his own hands, Yang Ziming felt that even if he cultivated, he would not be able to do it in this lifetime. However, he did not despair. He had seen from Chu Yang that strength was indeed important, but so were the methods used. Chu Yang's strength was not stronger than the Gold Rock Saint Sun and the 7 demon generals, but the Gold Rock Saint Sun and the 7 demon generals were dead, and Chu Yang was still alive. Thinking about Chu Yang's mocking smile, Yang Ziming also smiled. The Soul Devourer clan was not a demon sect now, but the Soul Devourer clan would soon become one, as long as he was not too stupid. Yang Ziming intended to expose all of this, and cause a sensation. He didn't have the slightest intention to shout for Chu Yang, nor did he have the intention to ask for help, nor did he have the intention to reduce the pressure on Chu Yang. That was because he knew that there was no need for that. Young Master Chu, I'm sorry. I guess I'll have to use your tiger skin to cause some trouble today. Yang Ziming realized that he seemed to have been infected by the young Master Chu he was talking about. He should be gnashing his teeth, but now, he had a mocking attitude. Moo. The ox cart stopped. In front of them was the bustling streets of Jinyuan City. If the ox cart continued forward and they encountered that rude and unreasonable person, the villagers would be in trouble. Yang Ziming said to the villagers, "Uncles, let's stop here. Give me the items and all of you can go back. Young Master Yang, since we have come here today, we are prepared. We are not afraid." Several villagers were very respectful to Yang Ziming because of Chu Yang. Yang Ziming saw that although they were afraid, they were resolute and couldn't help feeling warm in his heart. At the same time, he smiled and said, "Since you call me Young Master Yang, you should know that young masters naturally have their own young masters, such as Young Master Chu. You all have your own things to do, and not to do young master's things." At this point, Yang Ziming suddenly thought of something and smiled. "Uncle, little Huzi had a nightmare again yesterday and talked in his sleep again." Little Huzi was the child whose head was pinched by the 7 dark generals. Naturally, he was frightened. One of the villagers laughed and said, "That silly boy is having a nightmare again, but it doesn't matter. It didn't scare him. Last night, he called me Uncle Chu the whole night." The rest of the villagers couldn't help but laugh. Because of little Huzi's influence, their frightened children were much better than before. Yang Ziming knew what little Huzi was shouting, but he still wanted to hear it. Did little Huzi shout again, "Uncle Chu treats all kinds of disobedience, don't jump"? The villager gave a simple and honest smile, and a grateful expression appeared on his face. When young Master Chu left, this silly child clearly remembers the words you left behind. Young Master Chu's actions that day were imprinted in his mind. As a father, he once asked his son where he learned the phrase, "Don't jump." After all, before young Master Chu left, he only said that he treats all kinds of disobedience, and he didn't say the last part. His son's answer made him very proud. Although he didn't know if the so-called young Master Chu had said such a thing, it wasn't easy for a child who was only a few years old to be able to recover from such a shock so quickly. Chapter 674. "Alright, uncles, it's time for you to go back." Yang Ziming spoke again as he took down the human heads and various items from the ox cart. Young Master Yang Ziming interrupted them and said with a smile, "What you need to do now is to go back and raise more young Master Yangs. It would be best if they could all become young Master Chu." After he finished speaking, Yang Ziming left in large strides. He stopped when he reached an open area where the flow of people was denser. Then, he threw out the marinated human heads one by one and unfolded the banner that he had prepared. When the human heads suddenly appeared, the passers-by suddenly saw them and screamed in fright. Then, Yang Ziming became the focus of the crowd and countless people rushed over. The banner was immediately noticed by the crowd. Written on it were shocking news: outside Jinyuan City, many villages were massacred by the Soul Devourer clan and the 1000 Devil sect in order to collect souls and refine them into pure soul power to increase their cultivation. Which village was massacred? Were they buried alive? Were they drowned? Were they burned to death? Were they burned to death? Were they buried alive? Were they drowned? Were they burned to death? Everything was written clearly. The blood-red words were very eye-catching and the content was even more shocking. Many people discovered that one of the 4 major sects, the Soul Devourer clan, had the words Soul Devourer Demon Sect written in large eye-catching font. Soul Devourer Demon Sect. Boom. The surrounding crowd couldn't help but jump in fright and pull far away from Yang Ziming. It was as if the words Soul Devourer Demon Sect were more terrifying and horrifying than any inhumane and deranged slaughter. Yang Ziming only sneered when he saw this scene. The prestige of the Soul Devourer clan could be seen from this. Who would dare to anger them? Just these 4 words were enough to make everyone avoid them as if they were the plague. What about the rest? Probably no one would dare to disrespect a disciple of the Soul Devourer clan, let alone kill a disciple of the Soul Devourer clan. At this moment, Yang Ziming suddenly realized that there were not many people like Chu Yang. He didn't say anything. He just stood there quietly and watched with cold eyes. Looking at this ridiculous scene, the ridicule in his heart became even more intense. Don't they know that if the Soul Devourer clan can slaughter others today, they won't slaughter them the next day? Stupid. How pathetic. During this time, a few people came to find trouble, but Yang Ziming dealt with them all. The people he could deal with were naturally not big shots. He was waiting for the big shots to arrive. After an unknown period of time, Yang Ziming suddenly noticed a commotion in the crowd. Someone exclaimed, "The Marquis of Ronggua's estate is here. That's the young Marquis of Marquis Ronggua's manor, Wu Guanqi. How impressive." Then, the crowd took the initiative to open up a path. A young man dressed in gold and silver, followed by a group of people, pressed forward like a pack of wolves and tigers. Yang Ziming's eyes narrowed slightly as he sized up this group of people. The group behind the young man was extremely powerful. The weakest one was at least at the 5th level of the ascending soul tier, and there was even an old man at the soul wheel tier among them. The Marquis of Ronggua's estate, Wu Guanqi. A smile suddenly appeared on Yang Ziming's face. This seemed to be enough. The city lord of Jinyuan City was dead, and the Marquis of Ronggua's estate was one of the best in Jinyuan City. The person who came was indeed Wu Guanqi. Pa. Wu Guanqi closed the folding fan in his hand and pointed at Yang Ziming with contempt, questioning him repeatedly. "Are you the one who is exaggerating? Are you the one who is slandering the Soul Devourer clan? Slandering?" Yang Ziming couldn't help but sneer. "What do you think? Impudent, you dare to speak to me like this? I think you're tired of living." Wu Guanqi immediately raised his hand. Chapter 675. Don't jump. An ant-like thing actually advised him not to jump. Wu Guanqi's voice couldn't help but turn cold. His gaze was like a venomous snake as he stared at Yang Ziming. He said sinisterly, "You dog, I think you're tired of living." "I'm tired of living?" Yang Ziming despised him even more in his heart, and his tone became even sharper. "I think you're tired of being the young Marquis of the Marquis Mansion of Rome Nation and want to die." As he spoke, Yang Ziming suddenly took a step forward and pointed at Wu Guanqi's nose. "Who do you think you are? You're just a piece of trash. Why did you come out and embarrass yourself? Do you have the right to ask about this matter? Do you have the right to speak? You don't know what you're talking about. Go back and call your father. I want to see what kind of father raised such a stupid son like you. How dare you?" Wu Guanqi was furious. "Someone, teach him how to be a dog. I want to see what right he has to be so arrogant." Boom. The followers behind him immediately burst out with their auras and rushed out. Just as they were about to attack Yang Ziming, they suddenly stopped. This was because Yang Ziming took out a pickled head. At this moment, the pickled head was being held in the air by him. This head swayed weakly in the air as if it had some kind of magic. Not only did it cause the people who attacked to freeze, but Wu Guanqi also retreated in shock when he saw this head. "The young Marquis of the Marquis Mansion of Rome Nation, you seem to recognize this head, right?" Yang Ziming sneered as he threw the head in his hand away and took out another one. "I don't know if you recognize this head." Wu Guanqi's pupils constricted. He didn't recognize the second head, but he could feel a powerful aura from it. Bang! Yang Ziming threw the head on the ground again and sneered. If you don't recognize the young Marquis of the Marquis Mansion of Rome Nation, then I'll properly introduce you. He pointed at the first head. Look carefully, this is the head of the Gold Rock Holy Son of the Soul Devourer clan. After that, he pointed at the second head. This is the head of the Thousand Devil sect. The Gold Rock Saint. The Gold Rock Holy Son of the Soul Devourer clan. The onlookers could no longer hear Yang Ziming's next words. When they heard him say that it was the head of the Gold Rock Saint child, they were completely shocked and clamored. Heavens, the Gold Rock Holy Son was actually killed. Could it be that the Thousand Demon sect and the Soul Devourer clan are colluding to do such a deranged thing? It's very possible. Otherwise, why would the head of a Holy Son of the Soul Devourer clan be here? If that's the case, then the Soul Devourer clan is really the Soul Devourer demonic sect. Be careful with your words. What if this person in front of you is slandering you? You can't just listen to his side of the story. When Wu Guanqi spoke again, the crowd immediately calmed down. Did you kill him? Yang Ziming smiled. What do you think? Wu Guanqi felt that the smile on Yang Ziming's face was very familiar. He suddenly thought of a possibility, and his heart couldn't help but shrink. At this moment, Yang Ziming spoke again. I naturally don't have the ability to kill the Gold Rock Holy Son. Yang Ziming sneered and looked at Wu Guanqi. I don't have the ability to kill him, but someone else can. But I don't know who this person is. He calls himself Chu Qingtian, Chu Tianjiao, Chu Monstrous, Chu Kuangren, Chu Demonic, Chu Poet. After a pause, Yang Ziming looked at Wu Guanqi again and smiled mockingly. Can you tell me who he is? Chu Yang. Wu Guanqi felt as if he had been struck by a bolt of lightning from the heavens. His body trembled violently, and with a bang, he fell to the ground on his butt. It was as if electricity had passed through his body, and he started trembling. He was extremely frightened. Chapter 676. Yang Ziming sneered in his heart. Just as he was about to proceed to the next step, he suddenly heard an angry roar. Wu Guanqi, are you trying to stir up trouble again? Immediately, the crowd parted. Yang Ziming felt as if a meatball was rolling toward him. His eyes widened. How can a person be so fat? Brother Fatty, save me. Wu Guanqi hugged the person's leg and begged, tell him that I didn't want to go against the Great Monster Chu. Great Monster Chu. It has something to do with Chu Yang's thing? The fat ball was shocked. Then, he glanced at Yang Ziming, the heads, and the banner. His eyes narrowed. Everything was as he had heard. There weren't many fat balls like this even in Jinyuan City. He could easily count them. Second Fatty Jin. After recovering from his shock, Second Fatty Jin looked at Yang Ziming. Your dog-leg Chu. That's good. Yang Ziming smiled bitterly in his heart. He was just bluffing, but the fat ball in front of him gave him a lot of pressure. This fat ball was obviously more difficult to deal with than Wu Guanqi. No. Haha. As soon as Yang Ziming denied it, he was surprised to find that the fat ball immediately laughed out loud. He was extremely happy, but the question that followed made him stunned again. Then are you chicken leg Chu or duck leg Chu? Chicken leg Chu. Duck leg Chu. Why don't you ask me if I can be eaten? Yang Ziming shook his head again. I'm not chicken leg Chu, nor duck leg Chu. At most, I'm mosquito leg Chu. Mosquito leg Chu, I'm jealous. The fat ball's envious expression left Yang Ziming completely stunned. After that, he was criticized by the fat man. Don't be unsatisfied. I can't even be Chu Mosquito. You're amazing. Yang Ziming was completely speechless. It's very difficult to be Mosquito Chu, because of this. The fat ball continued to act and stared at Yang Ziming. How do I know if what you said is true? Let me ask you, what is Great Monster Chu doing now? Killing people. Yang Ziming's voice turned cold, killing people without stopping. Even Fatty Jin was shocked by Yang Ziming's sudden words, let alone the others. Fatty Jin's eyes narrowed again. You're saying to kill people without stopping. Yang Ziming sneered and said, the Soul Devourer clan and the Thousand Devil sect sent out 10 teams to kill people to obtain their souls. The Great Monster Chu Li killed one team, But there are still 9 teams left. Do you think he's killing people right now? How do I know if you're telling the truth? Second Fatty Jin's heart trembled. The Soul Devourer clan and the 1,000 demon sect's 10 paths had all come out to kill people and take their souls. This was too shocking. Is what I said true? Yang Ziming pointed at what was written on the banner and said in a deep voice, "Why don't you investigate according to what's written there? Men." Second Fatty Jin anxiously roared, "Immediately investigate according to the instructions, then report back to me." Bang! He kicked Wu Guanqi and said, "Get your men to go too. It's time for you to atone for your sins. Hurry up and do it." Wu Guanqi also immediately roared. In an instant, the sound of something breaking through the air rang out. It wasn't just Second Fatty Jin and Wu Guanqi who were sent out to investigate. Many people also sent people to investigate in order to confirm what was happening. Not long after, many people came back. Their faces were either filled with fear or anger. Young Marquis, Little Dragon Village, 20 li west of Jinyuan City, has been buried alive. West of Jinyuan City, after Little Dragon Village, all the people in the other villages have been slaughtered. Not even chickens, dogs, or livestock were left behind. Southwest of Jinyuan City, Anyuan Town, 30 li from Jinyuan City, has been slaughtered and buried alive. Shocking news came back one after another, many of which were not on Yang Ziming's banner. Chapter 677. At this moment, Second Fatty Jin's eyes seemed to be able to see the blood on the ground and the people lying in the pool of blood. He could hear the cries and screams in his ears. He could smell the smell of blood in his nose. He could feel the aura of death touching him like a giant hand. Second Fatty Jin's fat body was shaking, and his hands were shaking. He cursed in his heart, "Is he even human? This is simply $% and..." Many people in the crowd were breathing rapidly, and their chests were heaving up and down. However, he saw that many people didn't think much of it. Although they were shocked, they felt that this had nothing to do with them. After the silence was broken, many people began to talk and laugh. Some people even joked about this matter. Second Fatty Jin was slightly angry and immediately sent a voice transmission to Yang Ziming. "Mosquito Leg Chew, you're not afraid of embarrassing yourself, but aren't you afraid of losing face for Monster Chew? Do you know how to cause trouble?" Yang Ziming couldn't help but be startled. His voice sounded in his mind again, "Look at all these people. Their faces don't seem to have anything to do with them. If this matter isn't big enough, what's the use? You should learn from the great Monster Chew." Hearing this, Yang Ziming looked over. Everything was just as the fat ball had said. After everyone's shock, they didn't seem to be as shocked as when he threw out the gold rock Holy Sun's head. You have to make them feel that this matter has something to do with them. For example, the Soul Devourer clan and the 1,000 Demons sect might have massacred Jinyuan City. As long as you say this and look at their faces, it will definitely be very interesting. Yang Ziming heard the fat ball's voice transmission again and couldn't help but secretly send a voice transmission, "Your Mosquito Leg Chew." "No." Second Fatty Jin hurriedly denied, "I'm as fat as a pig. Please call me Pig Leg Chew. My legs are much bigger than yours." Second Fatty Jin's tone was very arrogant. He was proud of being a pig. Yang Ziming was immediately speechless. He really believed that the fat ball was Chu Yang's lackey. This fat ball and Chu Yang clearly had the same attributes. "Everyone," he spoke, "don't you feel that this has nothing to do with you?" When he spoke, everyone couldn't help but fall silent. "Me." Yang Ziming sneered, "I can tell you clearly that the reason I threw the head to you was to remind you that Jinyuan City is the next target of the Soul Devourer clan and the 1,000 Devil Sec." Boom. The crowd was boiling with excitement. "Impossible, absolutely impossible. That's right. How is that possible? Do you think Jinyuan City is one of those small villages? Do you think the 1,000 Demons sect and the Soul Devourer clan would dare to do such a thing? That's right. If they dare, the Soul Devourer clan will be courting death. You're just trying to scare me." Yang Ziming listened quietly. After these people finished talking and scolding, he said, "Are you done?" The crowd fell silent again. "I'll tell you why." Yang Ziming sneered and pointed at the ground under his feet. because there are so many people here. To them, slaughtering Jinyuan City is no different from slaughtering a village. They just need some time to prepare. After listening to Chu Yunsheng's frightening words, he turned around and left. As for whether you believe it or not, it's none of my business. I've already said what I should say. I've also done what Chu Yunsheng asked me to do. Goodbye. After a while, Yang Ziming became a black dot in the crowd's line of sight and completely disappeared. Boom. This time, the crowd really went into an uproar. Do you guys think it's true? Maybe it's true. Previously, Tianyuan City was slaughtered and scolded. At that time, I heard that it was the Thousand Devil sect who did it. Tianyuan City. When this name was shouted, the crowd immediately cried out in alarm. The crowd became even more chaotic and noisy. Hee hee. Second Fatty Jin looked at the scene in front of him and laughed evilly in his heart. He was also very proud. This time, you guys don't care about this matter anymore. You guys finally know how to be anxious and scared. With a flick of his sleeve, he was about to leave when a panting person rushed over and said to him, "Young Marquis, urgent news. Fengmaro City has been massacred by the Soul Devourer sect and the Thousand Devil sect." Chapter 678. Not long after, the person who came to deliver the news to Wu Guanqi also arrived. The crowd became even more deathly silent. Many people in Fengmaro City knew that it was a city that was not inferior to Jinyuan City. If Fengmaro City could be massacred, what was impossible for Jinyuan City? Why are you so sure that it was done by the Soul Devourer clan and the Thousand Devil sect? Second Fatty Jin's mind was very clear. Young Marquis, the ones who massacred Fengmaro City were Elder Soul Devourer of the Soul Devourer clan and Elder Qian Mo of the Thousand Devil sect. The two of them have been killed. Who killed them? Second Fatty Jin was shocked. Even Wu Guanqi was scared out of his wits. The Soul Devourer clan had 3 big gourds, 3 profound meanings, and 3 elders: Soul Devourer Elder, Soul Slayer Elder, and Detention Elder. Soul Devourer Elder was one of the 3 elders. His position was incomparably respected. Under the Soul Devourer clan's sect master were these 3 elders. Thousand Devil sect. Since it was called the Thousand Devil sect, it was easy to imagine the position of Elder Qian Mo in the Thousand Devil sect. However, these 2 people were actually killed. A person who called himself Grandpa Chu. According to the description of the people in Fengmaro City, this Grandpa Chu was very young. There was a small beast on his shoulder. We suspect that it might be young Master Chu, Chu Yang. King Chu bastard. Second Fatty Jin was so shocked that he jumped up from the ground. Like a ball, he jumped up 10 feet high. He was really frightened. Chu Yang was going to ascend to heaven. He actually killed Elder Soul Devourer and Elder Qian Mo. Oh my god. After such news spread, the entire Jinyuan City was in an uproar. Many people were panicking. Almost everyone was in danger. Many people joined forces and shouted at the Wei Nation, venting their hearts and asking the Wei Nation to send people to protect Jinyuan City. Since Second Fatty Jin had received the news, the Wei Nation, Wu Nation, Han Nation, the 5 Elements sect, the 7 Stars sect, and the Longhu sect naturally received the news much earlier. However, they were not as shocked as expected. It was as if they were not very surprised by the Soul Devourer clan's actions. They were surprised that this so-called Grandpa Chu, a mere youth, was able to kill Elder Soul Devourer and Elder Thousand Devil, as well as slaughter everyone from the Soul Devourer clan and Thousand Devil sect. This was incredible. Among these major powers, the Wei Nation suffered the greatest impact. The entire court was shaken because this wasn't just a declaration of war by the Soul Devourer clan against the Wei Nation, it had directly shaken the foundation of the Wei Nation's rule. If the Wei Nation did not react to this matter, they would lose the hearts of the people, and it was only a matter of time before their nation was destroyed. Therefore, on that day, the Wei Nation's emperor issued a punitive expedition against the Soul Devourer clan. At the same time, he sent letters of credence to the Wu Nation, Han Nation, Qi Nation, the 5 Elements sect, the Longhu sect, and the 7 Stars sect. In the name of righteousness, he proposed to form an alliance to annihilate the Soul Devourer clan. For a time, the eastern wilderness was shaken. The name of Grandpa Chu was known by everyone in an instant. After confirming that this so-called Grandpa Chu was Chu Yang, the various major powers had different reactions. The Wei nation had the most complicated reaction. Chu Yang had killed the third princess of the Wei nation and slapped them in the face. Now, not only could they not go on a punitive expedition, they even had to thank him. The Five Elements sect was in an uproar. Other people's reactions aside, the sentencing elder's words of relief made the entire Five Elements sect speechless. The general meaning of the sentencing elder's words was, "Fortunately, I was wise and decisively sent this Grandpa Chu out of the Five Elements sect. Otherwise, this Grandpa Chu's butcher's knife would have slaughtered my old bones." Many people in the Five Elements sect felt that this was really possible. Previously, Chu Yang had killed a peak master of the Five Elements sect. Not long after he left the Five Elements sect, he actually caused such a big matter and killed Elder Qian Mo and Elder Soul Devourer. If he could kill Elder Soul Devourer, then it was not impossible for him to kill the sentencing elder. This combat strength was too strong, simply too strong. However, after Chu Yang's relatives and friends in the Five Elements sect were shocked, they began to worry for Chu Yang. Not only had Chu Yang killed Elder Shahun and Elder Qian Mo, but he had also exposed the fact that the two sects had gone insane. Their hatred for Chu Yang was indescribable. It was as if they were mortal enemies. This was especially true for the Soul Devourer clan. They were originally one of the four major sects. Now, their reputation had plummeted and they had become the Soul Devourer demonic sect. Everyone wanted to beat them up and kill them. If they did not kill Chu Yang, they would not be able to rest in peace. At this moment, Chu Yang realized that the entire eastern wilderness might be shaken. He also knew that he would definitely become a thorn in the eyes of the Soul Devourer clan. However, he did not expect things to happen so quickly, nor did he have the time to care about it. His current thought was, how should he deal with these millions of souls? Chapter 679. The green mountains were green, and the clouds were blue. At this moment, the terrain Chu Yang was in was the terrain of beating a drowning dog. A lake was surrounded by mountains, and there was a small island in the middle of the lake. The mountains were big, but the lake was small. The mountains on all sides were slightly tilted towards the lake, as if they were going to fall into the lake. The towering mountains were like giants, and the small island in the lake was a drowning dog. The mountains that were tilted towards the lake were like many people beating the dog in the lake. In Chu Yang's eyes, such a majestic mountainous terrain had become extremely vulgar. Of course, this terrain of beating the dog while it was down was also made up by him. However, this didn't stop him from understanding it as such and setting up a great formation. Beating a drowning dog. Although the terrain Chu Yang defined was vulgar, this place was absolutely not vulgar at all. It was as beautiful as a painting. Not to mention the beauty of the mountains, just the lake alone was beautiful. The leaves around the lake were green, red, yellow, and white. Their shadows were reflected in the water, covering half of the lake. When the sunlight shone down, it was extremely beautiful and gentle. The lake was very soft. The smooth waves hugged and kissed the shore continuously, as if they were playing a piece of music that comforted the soul. The boat was as light as a feather, and the water was soft. On the wide, calm, and sparkling water surface, on the crystal clear water surface, a small boat moved with the waves. Chu Yang was on this small boat. Wah sounds came from the lake. Xiao Guari had already jumped into the lake to play with the water. On the boat, Chu Yang looked at the soul-devouring gourd and frowned. After using these 10 million souls to improve my martial soul, how should I deal with them? Where should I place them? What kind of future should I give them? Being responsible for the future of 10 million souls was not an unbearable burden. Chu Yang made it sound like he was very powerful. However, he did have to be responsible for these 10 million souls. There will be a way when the car reaches the mountain. When the boat reaches the bridge, it will be straight. Let's not care about the future for now. Let's take care of the present first. This kind of pressure made it hard for Chu Yang to breathe. He irritably dispersed all his thoughts and began to absorb the souls. Of the 10 soul-quenching gourds, The first 6 soul-quenching gourds had a total of 600,000 souls, which allowed his genius martial spirit and idiot martial spirit to reach the 3rd grade. The remaining 4 soul-quenching gourds had a total of 400,000 souls. Including the 10 million souls in the soul-devouring gourd, Chu Yang had a total of 10,400,000 souls. He estimated that although the genius martial spirit and the idiot martial spirit required more living souls to increase their ranks, the 10.04 million living souls should be enough to upgrade the genius martial spirit and the idiot martial spirit to the 9th grade. When a living soul entered one's body, it would cause a huge impact on one's physical body and spirit, especially on the physical body. Previously, when 100,000 souls entered his body, it was already a huge blow to Chu Yang. Now, 100,000 souls entering his body was the upper limit of what he could bear. Therefore, Chu Yang was very careful, absorbing 100,000 souls into his body each time. In this way, the 10 million souls would only be absorbed 100 times. He began to upgrade his martial spirit. First, it was the 400,000 souls in the 4 soul-quenching gourds. Hee hee. Soon, in the picturesque scenery, the cries of countless ghosts suddenly resounded, breaking the tranquility. The ghostly fog above the beautiful scenery suddenly made it a little gloomy. In the lake, on the boat, there was a ghostly fog lingering around. It seemed that the seal there had been broken and countless ghosts had escaped from the netherworld to wreak havoc in the human world. Chapter 680. Light and darkness soon alternated, and the two sides seemed to have reached a compromise. Chu Yang was half light, half dark. The light boat was half light, half dark. It seemed that the lake was also divided by light and darkness. It was also half light and half dark. In the end, the scene was even stranger. Only half of Chu Yang's transparent body was visible on the light boat. The other half of his body seemed to be covered by darkness, and also seemed to be swallowed by darkness, completely disappearing without a trace. Pop! From the light boat, circles of ripples spread out from the surface of the lake. At the same time, circles of ripples also spread out from the center of Chu Yang's eyebrows, continuously releasing soul pressure. After absorbing 400,000 souls from the 4 soul-quenching gourds, he upgraded his genius martial spirit and idiot martial spirit to 4th grade martial spirit. While Chu Yang was upgrading his genius martial spirit and idiot martial spirit, 2 people, each holding a gourd, quickly rushed toward him. Flying at an extremely fast speed, the 2 people quickly arrived at Chu Yang's location. They landed and entered a forest. Their movements then became slower and more cautious. The forest was very dark. When they reached here, the person in front suddenly stopped. Almost at the same time, the person behind him also stopped. The strong wind that the 2 of them caused also immediately weakened. The 2 people's auras were extremely vigorous. They both wore black robes, bright red cloaks on their bodies, and wide bamboo hats on their heads. The 2 people looked almost the same, and had the same height. Although their faces couldn't be seen, their eye-catching clothes were extremely eye-catching in the forest. The 2 of them stopped in their tracks and slowly took off their bamboo hats, revealing 2 withered, thin, and ugly faces. They looked like 2 yellow wax heads. Their ears were very big, and so was their nose. Their ears were so big that when people first saw them, it was definitely their ears, and definitely not their faces. However, this was also good. Their faces were really not worthy of compliments. Their large noses took up almost a quarter of their faces, like a strange mountain peak that suddenly appeared. Not only did it take away the light from their mouths and eyes, it even squeezed them away. However, their gazes were vicious and sharp, like the eyes of a poisonous snake. Although they were dressed in black robes, their bodies were slender and tall. Their bodies were like poisonous snakes wriggling within the black robes. They gave off a sticky and wet feeling, which made people feel afraid and disgusted at the same time. The 2 of them looked almost exactly the same. The only difference was that the person on the left had a face as dark as the bottom of a pot, while the person on the right had a sickly pale face. At this time, the 2 of them scanned the surrounding terrain again and again, like 2 wet brushes dipped in oil, constantly brushing. The terrain here is somewhat unusual. It is completely possible to use its strength here. No wonder that little bastard decided to stay here. I can already feel the aura of the formation. The formation he set up should not be small. Isn't he a little naive to think that he can stop us with a mere formation? As the two of them conversed, their words revealed an incomparably dense murderous intent. There was also a dense hatred, causing the identities of the two of them to almost be revealed. If they weren't from the Thousand Devil sect, then they were from the Soul Devourer clan. Judging from this point, and looking at the extraordinary gourds in their hands, there was no doubt that they were from the Soul Devourer clan. Chapter 681. Between the two of them, the one with a face as black as the bottom of a pot was the soul-severing elder, and the one with a sickly pale face was the criminal detention elder. Both of them were holding one of the three gourds of the Soul Devourer clan, the soul-severing gourd and the criminal detention gourd. Elder Soul Slayer's gaze pierced through everything like a pair of snake swords. Everything that obstructed his vision seemed to be pierced through. He said in a sinister voice, "This little bastard broke our soul-chasing technique earlier, and now he stopped to set up a formation. It is obvious that he knows that the Soul Devourer gourd and the soul-severing gourd are closely connected, and we can track him down anytime." Chu Yang knew that he couldn't escape, so he set up a formation to fight to the death. This was the soul-severing elder's judgment. He doesn't just know the secrets of the three gourds. The criminal detention elder's voice was filled with resentment. He killed Big Brother and used the Soul Devourer gourd to extract Big Brother's soul. Inside the Soul Devourer gourd, Big Brother's soul is at his mercy. What can be hidden from him now? This meant that all the secret techniques and secrets of the Soul Devourer clan were exposed to Chu Yang. How could the criminal detention elder tolerate this? How could he not be resentful? Furthermore, the Soul Devourer elder, the soul-severing elder, and the criminal detention elder were brothers. The Soul Devourer elder was the eldest brother, and the soul-severing elder and the criminal detention elder were twins. Chu Yang killed their eldest brother, and even if they had to chase him to the ends of the earth, they would definitely grind Chu Yang's bones to dust. Fortunately, the Lord is very mysterious, and we don't know much about the Lord. Otherwise, we would have really lost our underwear this time. As the soul-severing elder spoke, he gritted his teeth. This little bastard must die. As for the Lord he mentioned, it was the clan head of the Soul Devourer clan. He must die. The criminal detention elder also said in a sinister voice, "However, this little bastard is a little strange. He could even kill Big Brother, who was at the 9th level of the soul reincarnation realm. We have to be careful." At this point, the two of them couldn't help but frown, their faces clouded. They didn't know the specifics because they didn't have time. They needed to chase after Chu Yang. It was just that Chu Yang had such means, which indeed made them very wary. They were also certain that Chu Yang had secrets that they didn't know about. Chimph, what genius! What peerless talent! It's all useless. He's not even a dog's fart now. If we let him grow, he will be a dragon. If we don't let him rise, he will still be a bug that we can crush with a wave of our hand. Elder Soul Slayer's sinister eyes suddenly lit up like a ghostly lantern, turning a frightening green. The eyes of the criminal detention elder suddenly turned abnormally cold. It was very frightening. That is indeed the case, but we can't capsize at such an easy task again. It's better to be careful. After a pause, he sensed the array that Chu Yang had set up and said, "This place is still a little far from the array. We have to get closer to accurately determine the power of the array." The two of them were like cautious ghosts, floating forward. After advancing for a few hundred meters in the forest, their pupils suddenly shrank, and they were enraged. At this moment, there was a wooden sign in front of them. On it was written, "Beat up a drowning dog, be careful when you enter." Damn it, this little bastard actually treated us, the Soul Devourer clan, as dogs. Moreover, we are drowning dogs. Elder Soul Slayer was furious. The Soul Devourer clan's current situation was really bad. For the sake of the world, it wasn't wrong to call them drowning dogs. When he thought of this, Elder Soul Slayer's face turned even darker. He was about to destroy the wooden sign in his fury, but he was stopped by the criminal detention elder. "Third brother, Don't be angry. Don't fall into his trap. The criminal detention elder anxiously said. He set up this wooden sign because he clearly calculated the path we might take. Perhaps he set up an ambush here. I'm afraid that's how Big Brother fell into his trap. Chapter 682. Buzz. 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 Before the two of them had the time to check carefully, the gourds in their hands started to vibrate and let out buzzing sounds. Not good, the three gourds can sense each other. Now that we are too close, they are resonating with each other. That little bastard must have sensed us. The soul-slaying elder cried out in alarm, but the criminal detention elder had a calm expression. No worries, that little bastard is already prepared. He will eventually sense us. Subsequently, the criminal detention elder sensed the array that Chu Yang had set up. His pale face couldn't help but change. A grade 4 array that can kill a 9th-level soul wheel realm cultivator. It seems to be similar to the 5 Elements sect's mountain protection array. The soul-slaying elder was shocked. This meant that Chu Yang was at least a grade 4 array master. At this moment, they finally understood why their elder brother was killed. They didn't even bother to barge into such a huge array. At this moment, Chu Yang also sensed the soul-slaying elder and the criminal detention elder because of the soul-devouring gourd's abnormal movement. He couldn't help but stop his cultivation and opened his eyes. He said in surprise, "They came so quickly. Fortunately, I didn't choose to escape immediately. Otherwise, if they caught up to me, I would have died without a burial ground." The danger came from the soul-devouring gourd in his hand. It easily exposed his location. It was easy for Chu Yang to get rid of the danger. He just had to give up the soul-devouring gourd. However, how could he hand over the millions of souls in the soul-devouring gourd to the Soul Devourer clan? That was no different from handing over millions of souls to the Soul Devourer clan to be slaughtered. However, if he didn't give up the soul-devouring gourd, he would be putting himself in danger. This is troublesome. The soul-devouring gourd, the soul-slaying gourd, and the criminal detention gourd are all one. The three of them are too closely connected. I have no way to get rid of these two old dogs. Chu Yang frowned and then said, "Little Guari, you're in charge of controlling the formation now. Go and provoke those two old dogs, but you must pay attention to your safety." Yaya. Lil Guari no longer had a good impression of the Soul Devourer clan. It was extremely disgusted, so it became excited when it heard this name. It cried out and flew out with a swoosh. Its little figure disappeared in an instant. Now, I have to speed up and absorb the souls in the soul-devouring gourd into my body. Just now, Chu Yang had only absorbed 400,000 souls from the 4 soul-tempering gourds into his body, raising his genius martial spirit and idiot martial spirit to 4th grade. The faster he absorbed the millions of souls in the soul-devouring gourd, the faster he could escape from danger. The increase in strength was one thing, but the transfer of 10 million souls out of the soul-devouring gourd was another. If it was too dangerous, he could just throw the soul-devouring gourd away and escape. Chu Yang immediately sped up his absorption of the living soul. At the same time, Xiao Guari appeared in front of the soul-slaying elder and the criminal detention elder. It stood up on its hind legs and pointed at the two of them with its little paws, crying out non-stop. The soul-slaying elder and the criminal detention elder understood the general meaning. It was just repeating the words left on the wooden sign. "You two old dogs, I ask you to be careful. This is a place to beat a dog when it is down. You are two old dogs, so be careful when you come in. Otherwise, my leather whip will really hit you when you are down." Being called an animal by a little animal. Chapter 683. That damned little bastard. The soul-severing gourd's eyes almost popped out of their sockets, but it didn't move. How could it not see through this childish provocation? It immediately said, "Second brother, it seems like that little bastard Chu Yang must be in there. He's just trying to cover it up." The detention elder disagreed. "It's just a little bastard. I don't think that little bastard Chu Yang is in there. I suspect that he has already abandoned the soul-devouring gourd and fled in panic." "What about that little bastard? Since it's just a little bastard, do you think Chu Yang will care about his life?" Elder Soul Slayer couldn't help but grit his teeth. That bastard Chu Yang spent so much effort just to set up a bewitching array for us. The detention elder shook his head again. The terrain here is almost a natural formation. Chu Yang didn't need much time and effort to set it up. Although the detention elder wasn't proficient in formations, he still knew a thing or two about them. If that's the case, soul-severing gourd said sinisterly, we can go straight in, take the soul-devouring gourd, and then chase him to death. No. The detention elder's eyes flickered. What's true is false, what's false is real, what's true is false, what's false is false, what's false is real. This little bastard really has some tricks up his sleeve. If we barge in recklessly and fall for his trap, I'm afraid we'll follow in Big Brother's footsteps. Second brother, you mean to say that there's really nothing we can do about that little bastard Chu Yang? The detention elder didn't want to admit it, but he had to. He said coldly, send a message back and ask the Lord to come up. Soul-severing gourd knew that this was a foolproof plan, but he still felt a little depressed. If it's the first situation, that little bastard will really escape. Escape. Let him escape. The soul-devouring gourd is the most important thing right now. We can't afford to lose it. The detention elder said sinisterly. How many times can he escape? If we want to kill him, where can he run to in the eastern wilderness? At once, the two of them sent the information to the Soul Devourer clan. At this moment, the Soul Devourer clan. On one of the most secretive mountain peaks of the Soul Devourer clan, there was snow that never melted all year round and thick fog that never dispersed in all 4 seasons. Day and night, one would be shrouded in clouds and fog. At the peak of the mountain, there was a large hall built with large white stones. It was surrounded by high-hanging stones, which were as dangerous as sharp swords. The sound of strong wind piercing through the air whistled through the sky, sounding mournful like a group of ghosts crying at night. The size of the hall was grand and the structure was solid. At first glance, it would make people feel that even if there was a landslide or an earthquake, it would not show any signs of collapse. Although the exterior was made of rough and unpolished stones, it was very spectacular. Inside, it was luxurious and exquisite. No one could imagine. Within the main hall, there were a total of 36 rooms of various sizes. The largest one could accommodate 1,000 people. The 360 rooms were all meticulously designed. Inside, there were all kinds of strange and wonderful things that one could imagine, as well as some rare treasures that one could not even imagine in one's imagination. It could be said that the luxuries were extreme. It was so luxurious that it was infinitely close to the secular world. It was completely separated from the martial path. The things inside had nothing to do with the martial path. They were only related to enjoyment. There was only one room that was an exception. This room was located at the center of the hall. However, there was almost nothing in the room. There was a wall, a roof, a narrow door, 2 small windows, and a table and chair. In this room, there was only one chair. The chair was covered with a kind of navy blue velvet that was even bluer than dark blue. It was smooth and soft like a swan. At this moment, there was a middle-aged man sitting lazily on this chair. It was a middle-aged man with a pale face and protruding arms. His pale face and pale hands were especially prominent and obvious. His whole body seemed to carry the charm and temperament of an ancient aristocrat. Chapter 684. The clan leader of the Soul Devourer clan sat there motionlessly, as if he was already dead. As a result, everything in the world around him seemed to have nothing to do with him anymore. Father. Suddenly, a voice sounded. Then, a young man in his 20s with an incomparably pale face walked into the room. This was the son of the clan leader of the Soul Devourer clan, Fang Wulong. At least, that was what everyone thought. Fang Wulong entered the room with fear in his heart. He immediately saw the clan leader of the Soul Devourer clan. That self-proclaimed scholarly and aloof face was completely pale, just like a dead person. This kind of sickly pale face was not the color of a dead person, but the color of a noble. Fang Wulong finally understood the reason behind this. Only the most noble people would have this kind of face. Not only would it be so pale that it was devoid of blood, but it would also be so pale that it was blue, so pale that it looked like a dead person. This was because people like them usually did not need to bleed and sweat under the sun. Fang Wulong was not such a noble person. Naturally, he was also not the son of the clan leader of the Soul Devourer clan. The reason why he was chosen was because he had a face as pale as the clan leader of the Soul Devourer clan. Fang Wulong now also agreed with this point of view. He was also proud of this, and even envied his own father's sickly pale face. Because he knew that no matter what, he would not be able to exchange for this kind of face. He was also unwilling to mention his past. As for the real son of the Soul Devourer clan's clan leader, he was even more unwilling to mention it. Long what's the matter? The clan leader of the Soul Devourer clan spoke. His voice was very indifferent. The moment he spoke, his expression did not change much. However, in the bottom of Fang Wulong's heart, that strange feeling that he had in the past appeared again. The father in front of him seemed to be hiding another person inside his shell. What kind of person was hiding inside? A person who is the complete opposite of his appearance. After many times of uneasiness and fear, Fang Wulong finally gave a clear description. A hypocritical, despicable, sinister, vicious, greedy, and murderous tyrant and shameless liar. This so-called father of his adopted him definitely had nothing to do with benevolence. There was only malice and conspiracy. Even so, he was willing to accept it. This was because he could do this now. Father, these two old dogs did not do their job well. They actually asked you to deal with a mere Chu Yang. There were definitely not many people who could call the soul-severing elder and detention elder old. Oh. The Soul Devourer sect's sect master was somewhat surprised, revealing an astonished expression. It seems that this Chu Yang is even more extraordinary than I expected. How should we respond to them? The sect master of the Soul Devourer sect was obviously pondering. Fang Wulong didn't dare to breathe loudly. After a while, Fang Wulong heard a voice. Send out all the elders of the clan. Fang Wulong turned pale with fright. Now that the 4 countries and 3 sects had jointly declared that they wanted to suppress the Soul Devourer clan, they should be defending themselves. How could they send out all the elders? Father, are you really going to give up on the Soul Devourer clan? Fang Wulong was trying his best to salvage the situation, but he only dared to say a little. The reason why he dared to ask this question today was because once the Soul Devourer clan was gone, he was nothing but a dog fart. Longer, this is actually the best way. Fang Wulong naturally understood the meaning behind his words. What the Soul Devourer clan did was not popular. Even the disciples of the Soul Devourer clan criticized them. The current Soul Devourer clan was like a sheet of loose sand. How could they resist the 4 countries and 3 sects? However, his father giving up on the Soul Devourer clan was too straightforward. It was like a billionaire giving up a mountain of gold to someone else. Yes, father. Chapter 685. Chu Yang didn't have a clear understanding of the situation, so he was a little nervous. When he noticed that the soul-slaying elder and the detention elder had stopped their actions, he knew that the 2 of them were plotting something, but he couldn't care less. His first task now was to absorb the 10 million souls in the soul-devouring gourd into his body. Riding at full speed, he didn't stop. Chu Yang was racing against time, and more importantly, he was racing against death. After absorbing 500,000 souls, his genius martial spirit and idiot martial spirit were upgraded to the 5th grade. After absorbing 800,000 souls, his 2 martial spirits were upgraded to the 6th grade. After absorbing 1,200,000 souls, his martial spirits were upgraded to the 7th grade. When his martial spirits were upgraded to the 8th grade, the number of souls required increased dramatically. In order to upgrade his 2 martial spirits to the 8th grade, he needed 2 million souls. At this moment, Chu Yang also stopped. He suddenly realized that he had overlooked an extremely fatal problem, the 3rd revolution of the Soul Ascension realm. Out of the 10 million souls, he had used up a total of 4,500,000 souls, leaving him with 5,500,000 souls. This was definitely enough to upgrade his genius martial spirit and idiot martial spirit to the 9th grade, then trigger the 3rd revolution of the Soul Ascension realm and enter the 2nd revolution. 10 million souls, what kind of power was that? How strong were his genius martial spirit and idiot martial spirit? The third revolution of the soul ascension realm, which was difficult for others to achieve, could happen easily for Chu Yang, and could happen at any time. As long as there was enough energy, his genius martial spirit and idiot martial spirit could make everything extremely simple. Therefore, if he triggered the third revolution of the soul ascension realm, he definitely wouldn't be surprised. Once the third revolution of the soul ascension realm was triggered, it meant that he would enter the second revolution. According to Chu Yang's experience of the third revolution of the primitive martial spirit and the third revolution of the Chi soul, after entering the second revolution, he should fall to the third layer of the soul ascension realm. A body cultivator could fight against a first layer of the Chi soul realm with 1 dragon's strength, and a first layer of the ascension soul realm with 10 dragon's strength. However, the soul reincarnation realm was different. The soul reincarnation realm was a huge leap after accumulating the primitive martial spirit, Chi soul realm, and ascension soul realm. Under the circumstances of the soul reincarnation realm, a body cultivator would need at least 50 dragon's strength to be able to fight against a first layer of the soul reincarnation realm. After that, it increased with the strength of 10 dragons. In other words, under the condition of ignoring the domain, he would need to have at least 130 dragon's strength to be able to fight against someone at the 9th level of the soul wheel realm. Chu Yang now had 10 dragon's strength, and with the third revolution of the origin martial technique and the third revolution of the Chi soul, he could erupt out with 60 dragon's strength. Adding on the 10 dragon's strength from the gold origin martial technique, that was 70 dragon's strength. After he stepped into the ascending soul realm, the path of body cultivation was cut off. Although his true essence had turned into spirit Qi, his physical body was already very strong. The spirit Qi did not cause the strength of his physical body to not increase in the slightest. Therefore, even if he fell from the 9th layer of the ascending soul realm to the first layer of the ascending soul realm, although his battle prowess would be affected, the change would not be too big. It was within an acceptable range. The drop in cultivation level wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was how long it would take for the genius martial spirit and the idiot martial spirit to completely transform after the third revolution of the soul ascension. 3 days, 7 days, 1 month, or 3 months. Perhaps it could even be a year's time. There was no need to doubt the strength of Chu Yang's genius martial spirit and idiot martial spirit. Even if there were more than 10 million souls, they would be able to control them. And the more powerful the martial spirit, the more complicated the transformation would be, and the time required would definitely be longer. However, what Chu Yang lacked now was time. Racing against the Grim Reaper, wouldn't this be worth his life? I can't absorb the 5 million souls in the soul-devouring gourd now. Otherwise, once the third revolution of the soul ascension is triggered, the genius martial spirit and idiot martial spirit will transform, and I will really die without a burial place. This oversight was simply too fatal. Chu Yang hadn't thought of this before. Now, he was in a dilemma. He couldn't give up on these 5 million souls, but he didn't dare to absorb them. Damn it. Chu Yang was vexed inwardly. Wang. Chapter 686. At this moment, someone was fighting with Chu Yang over the terrain. He wanted to break the formation seal he had set up and take it for himself. His formation seal was attacked, which caused his mind to fluctuate. If the terrain was a saber, then his formation seal was the hand holding the saber's hilt. The moment his mind fluctuated, he sensed a big hammer smashing toward the hand holding the saber. Although Chu Yang still didn't understand the situation, he couldn't care less and immediately withdrew his formation seal. Whoosh! At the same time, he immediately shot over and began to fight with his opponent for the terrain. Soul-devouring gourd. The battle for the formation seal was a battle between array masters. The battle between array masters was a battle of mind power. Chu Yang directly used the soul slash in his sword martial soul and activated the soul-devouring gourd at the same time. The soul-devouring gourd had intelligence. Although Chu Yang could use it now, he couldn't completely control it. If the terrain was a sledgehammer and Chu Yang was a saber to the opponent, Then Chu Yang's attack on the opponent's formation seal was like a saber chopping off the opponent's hand that was holding the sledgehammer. When a scream was heard, Chu Yang directly used the soul-devouring gourd to devour his opponent's mind power. Buzz buzz buzz. Chu Yang had just succeeded when his mind power fluctuated again. His formation seal was attacked again. Not just one array master, and 2 level 4 array masters. At this moment, his pupils couldn't help but shrink. If his opponent grasped the terrain and set up a formation, he would become a turtle in a jar and be at his mercy. He might even be killed by the formation. Beat the dog in the water. When the time came, he would be the dog in the water. Bastard, where did those 2 old dogs find 2 level 4 array masters? And they're not inferior to me at all. Chu Yang didn't know much about the soul-devouring elder. The soul-slaying elder and the criminal detention elder only had a rough understanding of formations. They couldn't be array masters. Tired of running? Whoosh. Chu Yang controlled his array seal to dodge from afar. Then, he flew over. The 7 kills sword once again unleashed the soul-slaying soul-extinguishing sword. The soul-devouring gourd also absorbed the opponent's spiritual energy. As for the 2 array masters on the other side, they continuously competed with Chu Yang for the terrain. But in the end, they returned without success, unable to gain the slightest advantage. Little bastard, so what if your spiritual power is strong? So what if you stole my Soul Devourer clan's Soul Slayer and Soul Devourer mysteries? You still have to die. Right now, you're just a turtle in a jar. When I capture you, I'll definitely make you beg for death. A furious voice came from outside the mountain. Chu Yang could hear the anger in the other party's voice, but he could not retaliate like he did in the past. Through the formation, he sensed everything around him. His heart sank into the abyss, into the earth's core. 30 soul reincarnation realm experts. Including the 2 old dogs from before, there are a total of 32 soul reincarnation realm expert. Among them, only the soul-slaying elder and the detention elder were at the 9th level of the soul reincarnation realm. 3 of them were at the 8th level of the soul reincarnation realm. 7 of them were at the 7th level of the soul reincarnation realm. 15 of them were at the 5th level and 6th level, while 5 of them were below the 5th level. Among these people, there were 2 grade 4 array masters at the 5th level of the soul reincarnation realm. One of them was Heavenly Teacher He Tiancheng, and the other was Heavenly Teacher Wen Yongxi. They were both guest elders of the Soul Devourer clan. The rest were all elders and higher-ups of the Soul Devourer clan. Although Chu Yang did not recognize them, he knew about them from the Soul Devourer elder's divine soul. This is equivalent to the entire Soul Devourer clan gathering together to deal with me alone. Aren't they thinking too highly of me, Chu Yang? This time, Chu Yang was really a turtle in a jar. Not to mention the formation. Even without the formation array, if these people were to join forces, they would be able to shatter the formation he set up. Chapter 687. It's over. I'm really going to die this time. Chu Yang smiled bitterly. Even if it was a bitter smile, he was still able to smile now. He felt that he was already not bad. Young master, I can be considered to have done a good job. 32 soul reincarnation realm experts, the entire Soul Devourer clan came to kill me. How many people in the eastern wilderness have the same ability as me? Not only could he still smile, but he could even boast now. Chu Yang was even more satisfied with himself. After all, crying wouldn't solve anything. Or perhaps it was superstition. He heard that people who could smile at any time would have good luck. Chu Yang's third transformation of the origin martial realm and Chi Soul third revolution allowed him to erupt with 6-fold battle prowess, 60 dragon strength, and 16 gold origin power. With the help of the 9 dragons bell, the formation diagram, and the 7 kills sword, he had no problem dealing with those at the 5th level of the soul reincarnation realm. The 6th level was his limit. Therefore, he could only assassinate the Gold Rock Saint Child and the 7 demon generals. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to kill them. Needless to say, the Soul Devourer Elder and the 1000 Demon Elder would definitely be assassinated. 32 Soul Reincarnation Realm experts, he definitely wouldn't be a match for them. I'll drag as many as I can as a cushion. Chu Yang was prepared for the worst. Of course, he didn't give up on saving himself. He thought of all kinds of ways to escape, but in the end, he said none. Ya. The voice arrived first, followed by a 5-colored figure. It was little Guari. Not good, not good. So many vicious dogs have come. You just found out. Chu Yang was annoyed. So many vicious dogs have come. Can't you inform me in advance? Now, we are surrounded. Little Guari immediately lowered its head. Enough. Chu Yang rubbed its little head and smiled. This has nothing to do with you. So many vicious dogs came too quickly. Ya. Little Guari started to feel guilty again. Chu Yang flicked its little head and smiled. Little fellow, when will you learn to be cruel and unscrupulous? I'm worried for you. You have to learn more from Little 5. Boss, you've become a godly warrior. Little 5 immediately started flattering him. Little 6 immediately followed up and said, Boss, it's true that you can turn an entire fleet into ashes while you're chatting. These two apes. Chu Yang could only laugh. I say, Xiao Wu, your boss is about to have his head ripped open, dug out and eaten. Do you have any good ideas? Boss, you're a godly martial artist. Little 5 thought to himself. What can Master Monkey do? Where is Little 6? Boss, while we were chatting, the Da Lu was reduced to ashes. Little 6 was also helpless. This was a dead end. If they had to blame someone, they could only blame their boss for jumping around too much. Whoever jumped would die first. Their boss clearly understood this principle very well, and often used it to mock others. Why did he become so stupid when it came to him? Why did he have to meddle in these matters for no reason? Looks like I'm really going to be a heaven-defying martial artist and leave my name in history. Chu Yang laughed again, and his tone was very relaxed. He forced himself to relax as much as possible, especially at this critical moment, when panic and fear were of no use. Little 5 and Little 6 were speechless for a while. Their boss had already been heaven-blessed many times, and had also performed spectacularly many times. This should be the last time he would perform spectacularly, and then he would really go down in history. Therefore, there was nothing wrong with what their boss said. Chu Yang, you killed many of my Soul Devourer clan's saint children, killed my elder brother, and trapped my Soul Devourer clan in injustice. Now, I'll give you a favor, I'll give you the chance to commit suicide and destroy your own soul. Chapter 688. You really got off too easy. You should be grateful for such kindness. The Soul Slayer Elder's voice was clearly dissatisfied with the criminal detention elder's decision. Chu Yang, don't think that you are a genius or a demon. If we say you are, you are. If we say you aren't, you are nothing. Wen Yongxi, the so-called master Wen of the Soul Devourer clan, said in a grave and stern voice. After Wen Yongxi, Master He Tiancheng also said in a sinister voice, Don't think that I can't do anything to you just because you are a level 4 array master and have stolen the profound meaning of the Soul Devourer clan and have a great restraining effect on array masters. Many people from the Soul Devourer clan spoke up. Chu Yang only sneered when he heard them. What kindness! What great kindness! It was all a joke. Fear was fear. If they weren't afraid of him, they wouldn't have said so much nonsense. They would have killed their way in and made him beg for death. As for asking him to commit suicide, that was even more of a joke. Although Chu Yang was prepared for the worst, he never thought of giving up. Everything depended on effort. Who knew what would happen? Maybe this young master would suddenly become invincible. Or maybe they would be muddle-headed and this young master would escape. Chu Yang sneered in his heart and immediately retorted in a clear voice, Excuse me, everyone, how weak are you? Let me ask you again. Exactly how afraid are you of me? His relaxed and somewhat languid tone with a hint of mockery in it made the people of the Soul Devourer clan furious. This little bastard is indeed savage. Ridiculous. Chu Yang, I will definitely make you beg for death. After that, I will extract your soul and burn it every day. I will make you suffer for eternity and never reincarnate. Even if I chop you up 1,000,000 times, it won't be enough to quench the hatred in my heart. Just wait for me to tear you into pieces. The voice came from outside again. Chu Yang couldn't be bothered to reply. He looked at Lil Guari and said, Lil Guari, escape immediately and report back to me. Tell everyone about my glorious deeds. Yah. Lil Guari was immediately enraged and refused. Little thing, be obedient. Chu Yang rubbed its little head. Don't make me scold you, and don't force me to be rough. Otherwise, your pain will definitely be rhythmic. Yah. Not only was the little guy confident, but he was also very stubborn. He even became angry at Chu Yang's arrangement. Chu Yang really liked this little thing. He laughed and said, Little Guari, are you trying to get scolded for stirring up trouble? Once I open my mouth, you will know your mistake. Yah. Curse all you want. The little fellow stood up like a human and placed its little paws on its waist. Chu Yang's smile turned into an evil one. Little Guari, looks like you're not asking for a scolding, you're asking for a beating. If you don't listen, I'll knock you out directly and find a hole to bury you first. Once Lil Guari was covered by the 9 dragons' bell, he immediately lost his temper. He really didn't have any more tricks up his sleeve. Little Guari, to put it bluntly, you're now a burden. If I take care of you, my chances of escaping will be reduced a little. Do you understand now? After Chu Yang finished speaking, he cut off his connection with Little 5 and Little 6. Little 5, try not to eat human brains in the future. Little 6, don't learn from Little 5. Eating human brains will attract too much hatred. If you meet someone like me, you'll cry your eyes out. Little 5 said in a muffled voice, Boss, I want to eat human brains now. Don't stop me. He had never seen Chu Yang so short of breath. Hee. Little 6 also laughed sinisterly. Boss, count me in. Anyway, after 18 years, I'll be a good monkey again. Scram, the 2 of you are already dead. Mind your own business. Chapter 689. Boss, I want to eat human brains. You definitely won't object if I eat their brains. Boss, why do you have to be so stingy? Little 5 was very disdainful of the so-called bait. With how much those people outside feared Chu Yang, why would they care about him, Little Guari, and Little 6? Moreover, he and Little 6 were souls, so they didn't care about them at all. Boss, it's too dangerous to be bait. I refuse. Little 6 also spoke up. Chu Yang didn't want them to be bait. Even if they were bait, they definitely wouldn't be in danger. Chu Yang couldn't help but smile bitterly. Whether it was Little Guari, Little 5, or Little 6, they all knew his temperament too well. They didn't fear him at all. Little 5, at this time, even a ferocious fellow like you is going to cry and be wishy-washy with me. Only then will you feel comfortable, right? Little 5 was very depressed. It had finally been loyal, but now it was crying and being wishy-washy. You're really something. You're still not convinced. Chu Yang glared at Little 5 and the others. Hurry up and scram. What's the use of you staying here? Moreover, since you know my temperament, do you think I'm someone who will surrender so easily? This is just preparing for the worst. If you continue to dawdle with me, I'll take care of all of you first. I know. We're all trash. Little 5 was extremely displeased. Why are you speaking the truth? Since you know, then scram. Scram right now. Little 5, you're the most pleasing to the eye right now. Chu Yang grinned. Boss, don't die too miserably. Little 5 was in no mood to chat with Chu Yang. Its mood was very bad, and it couldn't be described. So when it spoke, it was roaring. Let's go, Little Guari. You're also trash now. Don't stay behind and drag us down. Yah. Little Guari was still stubborn, and Little 5 was fierce. You trash still have a temper, huh? Do you believe that I'll eat your brain first? Little 6 spoke up as well. Little Guari, you piece of trash, hurry up and get the hell out of here. Boss is dead, and we will avenge him in the future. Stop fooling around. Seeing that Chu Yang was about to knock it out, Lil Guari surrendered. Little 5 and Little 6 entered its body, and the 3 of them disappeared without a trace. The smile on Chu Yang's face became even brighter, but it immediately froze on his face. That old and ugly dog, look after your head. Your grandpa monkey will definitely rip open your skull one day and eat your dog brain raw. I'm talking about the two of you when I say ugly. The two dogs whose noses are bigger than their faces and whose ears are bigger than their heads are so ugly. How can you face the dogs? Dogs are very cute, okay? I strongly suggest that the dog clan expel all of you from the pack and completely remove your names. Yaya, these three idiots actually went to act as bait to attract hatred. Their mouths were extremely venomous. Among these 32 old dogs, if even one of them went, they would probably die. Don't pay attention to those animals. The detention elder's voice rang out, and Chu Yang heaved a long sigh of relief. Thank goodness. Then, his eyes narrowed. Now it's up to me. You want to kill me? Let's see if you have the ability to do so. Elder He, Elder Wen, the two of you try to control the formation. If possible, snatch the terrain from him. If not, distract him so that he won't have time to care about anything else. The detention elder's voice was very loud, and his arrangements and orders did not have any intention of avoiding Chu Yang's attention. The rest of you, charge in with me and grind that little bastard's bones to dust. Big brother, you should have done this long ago. There's no need to be so cautious. He's just a little bastard. How much power can he have? Elder Soul Slayer's voice was disdainful. If it were up to me, we wouldn't have let those little bastards go either. That's right. He's just a bug from the Five Elements sect. With so many of us here, we're already overestimating him. He's really embarrassing us. Chapter 690. Boom. The detention elder and the soul-slaying elder took the lead and broke into Chu Yang's formation. At the same time, Wen Yongxi and He Tiancheng were also waiting for an opportunity to destroy Chu Yang's formation seal and snatch the formation here. Do you really think I'm a pushover? If you want me to die, at least a few of you will die. Chu Yang sneered and then began to fight with He Tiancheng and Wen Yongxi for the terrain. Everyone in the Soul Devourer sect was now within the perception of Chu Yang's formation. There were two scattered light spots. One was He Tiancheng, and the other was Wen Yongxi. The other 30 light spots were moving quickly. They were the criminal detention elder and the soul-slaying elder. At the same time, Chu Yang knew that because of the Soul Devourer gourd, he was definitely in the perception of the detention elder and the soul-slaying elder. In an instant, countless thoughts flashed through Chu Yang's mind. If this continued, he would definitely die, and it would be difficult to drag anyone down with him. Fight. Chu Yang naturally didn't want to give up the 5 million souls in the Soul Devourer gourd, but there was no other way. If he died, everything would be zero. Whoosh. He abandoned the Soul Devourer gourd on the spot, gave up on the battle for the terrain, and gave up on his formation. He exploded with speed, chose the direction close to Wen Yongxi, and rushed out. The moment he broke through the formation cover, Wen Yongxi and He Tiancheng immediately sensed it and immediately informed the detention elder. Haha, this little bastard is really going to escape. Our strategy of beating the grass to scare the dog is really effective. The detention elder and the others also laughed, as they had expected. Chu Yang was reluctant to give up on the Soul Devourer gourd, but at this critical moment, was his life more important or the Soul Devourer gourd more important? If his life was gone, he would have nothing. Chu Yang's choice was naturally to give up on the Soul Devourer gourd, and definitely not his life. Although Chu Yang chose the right time, it was useless. Wen Yongxi and He Tiancheng were responsible for intercepting Chu Yang outside. Even if they couldn't kill Chu Yang, they could still intercept Chu Yang for a moment. Humph. The detention elder sneered and said, spread out and pursue freely. I want to see what else this little bastard can rely on after giving up on the array formation. Shoo. Shoo. The 30 soul reincarnation realm experts under the detention elder and soul severing elder's command scattered in all directions. At the same time, the detention elder and soul severing elder acted as the main force and rapidly rushed towards where Wen Yongxi was. At this moment, Wen Yongxi had already blocked off Chu Yang's path. Buzz buzz buzz. His cultivation at the 5th level of the soul reincarnation realm was fully unleashed, and his domain could cover a radius of 1,500 feet. At the same time, there was also a formation set up in the surroundings. The combination of the domain and the formation caused the might of the domain to be even greater. It definitely wouldn't lose out to the domain unleashed by a 9th-level soul circulation realm expert. The enemy was prepared. My actions have completely fallen into the enemy's calculations. Chu Yang's eyes involuntarily narrowed. He was powerless against a domain that was comparable to the 9th level of the soul reincarnation realm. The 9 Dragons Bell, the formation diagram, and the 7 Annihilation Sword were at most mid-grade soul reincarnation realm artifacts. The domain they unleashed was at most a 6th-level domain. Chu Yang could only tear apart a 7th-level domain at the 7th level of the soul reincarnation realm. What was more fatal was that when Yongxi was extremely cautious. He clearly knew that Chu Yang was strange and could kill 9th-level soul reincarnation realm experts like the Soul Devourer Elder and Qianmo Elder. Therefore, he didn't have the intention to attack. He simply stood there like a tiger blocking the road, like a huge mountain. His motive was simple. It was to stop or delay Chu Yang. When Yongxi clearly knew that the Detention Elder and Soul-Severing Elder were rushing over at their fastest speed, there was no need for him to take any risks. Furthermore, he was more than willing to let Chu Yang feel despair. Therefore, he smiled. Chapter 691. When Yongxi laughed, and so did Chu Yang. What are you laughing at? Boom. The spiritual energy in Chu Yang's body exploded, and he immediately got rid of the lock. Then, the spiritual lock on his body instantly transformed into 500 or 600 phantoms. These phantoms fled in all directions, and fled in all directions. What was even stranger was that although these illusions seemed to be moving forward, they were actually moving backward. They were moving to the east, but in the end, they were moving to the west. Originally, they were densely packed, but with such a disorderly movement, when Yongxi was suddenly dazzled. Creating phantoms was just a small trick, but at this moment, he couldn't distinguish between real and fake. He couldn't help but be shocked. All of a sudden, Chu Yang's shadows were everywhere in the void. What are you laughing at? As soon as he opened his mouth, there seemed to be 500 to 600 Chu Yang speaking at the same time. Chu Yang's voice was everywhere. You laughed at me for being cornered, and I laughed at you for laughing too early. You were very proud of blocking my way, but don't you know that there are many ways in this world? When Yongxi instantly understood. He looked at the many phantoms of Chu Yang. Some seemed to be going straight to the 9th heaven, some seemed to be going straight to hell, some were rushing towards him, some were rushing towards the criminal detention elder, and some were escaping back into the formation. Not good, this little bastard is escaping. There was no need for him to exclaim. The criminal detention elder, the soul-severing elder, and the many elders of the Soul Devourer clan saw this scene. Good trick, he can create so many phantoms at once, and they are all very strange. At this time, the criminal detention elder somewhat understood how Chu Yang killed his elder brother, the Soul Devourer elder. At the same time, many of Chu Yang's phantoms were rushing towards him. At first, he didn't care. No matter how stupid Chu Yang was, he wouldn't walk into a trap. However, he suddenly felt a warning in his heart, and then he immediately sensed something. Chu Yang. The criminal detention elder's pupils shook violently. At this time, he saw Chu Yang. Chu Yang, who was invisible, was like a peerless assassin. He didn't know where he came from, but he was stabbing towards him with his sword. It was silent and fast like a ghost. While he was rushing forward at an extremely fast speed, Chu Yang was thrusting towards him at an extremely fast speed in the opposite direction. He used a peerless stab, and that made him feel as if he was taking the initiative to collide with the tip of the sword. This little bastard actually has such a trick up his sleeve. Not good. When these thoughts appeared in his mind, he could clearly feel the sharp edge of the sword piercing through his throat without him feeling any pain. Cluck, cluck. A strange sound came from the criminal detention elder's throat. He never would have thought that not only did Chu Yang not escape, he actually charged into the tiger's den and took the life of a dragon in the dragon's den, slaughtering the tiger in the tiger's den. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that it was a tiger's den. There were at least a dozen people around him. His third brother, the Soul Devourer elder, and many other elders of the Soul Devourer clan surrounded him like stars in the sky. He actually dares to do this. Is he not afraid of death? Yes, this is the only way to take people by surprise and catch them off guard. He's also putting himself in a desperate situation. If he doesn't die, then I will die. What a decisive person. This was the criminal detention elder's thought before he died. He clearly understood the reason for his death. Although he wasn't too careless, he still underestimated Chu Yang. He underestimated Chu Yang's courage, underestimated Chu Yang's temperament, underestimated Chu Yang's ability, underestimated Chu Yang. Chapter 692. When the criminal detention elder died, he felt Chu Yang snatch the criminal detention gourd from his hand, and also heard his third brother's angry roar. "You little bastard, how dare you!" The detention elder even saw the many elders of the Soul Devourer sect, who were almost petrified in midair, with expressions of disbelief and horror. They can't believe it. That's why Chu Yang succeeded. That was his penultimate thought before he died. His last thought was, Big Brother must have died in his hands like this. Clang, clang, clang. The 9-dragon bell shook, and the sound of the bell and the dragon's roar echoed in the surroundings. At this moment, Chu Yang was surrounded by the Soul Slayer elder and the others. There was no way for him to escape. He killed the interrogation elder, but he also put himself in danger. However, he succeeded, so he laughed. After all, it was good to be the first scapegoat. Ha ha. His laughter echoed in the void. Little bastard, I'll definitely kill you. The Soul Slayer elder was the most heartbroken. Another of his brothers had been killed by Chu Yang. Soul Slayer extermination. Roaring like a mad beast, the Soul Slayer elder activated the Soul Slayer gourd in his hand with all his strength. A bloody wind swept out and swept toward Chu Yang. Gourd of detention. Chu Yang intuitively felt great danger. Without thinking, he immediately activated the gourd of detention. However, he felt the resistance of the gourd of detention and his heart couldn't help but thump. However, he still used the gourd of detention in the end. The gourd of detention spat out. With a whoosh, a black whirlwind swept out. There seemed to be a bull's head and a horse's face within it, capturing ghosts, and also a giant hand that wanted to grab people's souls. Boom! The bloody wind and the black whirlwind collided like two huge waves crashing together. The smell of blood swept away the black wind in an instant. Then, it blew towards Chu Yang, and submerged his entire body. Chu Yang had just obtained the soul-severing gourd, so he could only unleash 40 to 50% of its power. However, the soul-severing gourd in the soul-severing elder's hand could unleash 100% of its power. The result of the clash between the two was obvious. All of a sudden, a bloody wind blew over. Chu Yang felt as if his flesh and blood were being corroded. The bloody wind was like a small knife cutting into his flesh and blood. In addition, there were also fire, lightning, ice, earth, metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind and thunder, as well as darkness and light. The attacks of the 9 basic elements were also manifested. They had all turned into butcher's knives, and were slaughtering Chu Yang. The 9 transformations indestructible soul scripture can kill both the soul and the body. Chu Yang's heart trembled. The 9 revolution indestructible soul scripture could be used like this. At this moment, in his spiritual world, a bloody storm of swords and sabers rushed in, slaughtering his martial spirit. It wanted to destroy his soul and destroy everything. Clang clang clang. The sword and saber martial spirits trembled, and the intent to slay souls appeared, resisting the storm. The flood dragon martial spirit roared, but in an instant, its body was covered in blood. When the two met, the flood dragon martial spirit did not have the soul-severing profound of the sword and saber martial spirits, and was immediately injured. 9 revolution indestructible soul scripture. Chu Yang used this terrifying soul-severing profound of the soul-severing profound of the 9 revolution indestructible soul scripture to refine his body and martial spirit. The two were of the same origin, so this could be considered a battle of the 9 revolution indestructible soul scripture. After the sword and saber martial spirits and the flood dragon martial spirit were submerged, the storm of swords and sabers did not immediately kill them. It erupted with flames, thunder, light, darkness, etc. to destroy the sword and saber martial spirits and the flood dragon martial spirit. Chapter 693. Clang, 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 rumble, bang, bang, bang. The sound of swords and sabers, the roar of the surging river, the sound of mountains collapsing and the earth cracking, the sound of burning flames, the whistling of the wind, the roar of thunder, as well as light and darkness all erupted from Chu Yang's body. Light against light, darkness against darkness, thunder against thunder, fire against fire, water against water, earth against earth, wood against wood. It was as if there were 9 invincible armies clashing fiercely on Chu Yang's body. The result was clear in an instant. Chu Yang had gained the upper hand. He had resisted the corrosive attack of the blood-red wind. Chu Yang was the one who had truly cultivated the 9 most basic elements of metal: wood, water, fire, earth, wind, thunder, light, and darkness. He was the true master of the 9 elements, while Elder Soulslayer did not. How could he do anything to Chu Yang? In his spiritual world, the moment the blood-red storm of swords and sabers reached the genius martial spirit and the fool martial spirit, the millions of souls gathered in the genius martial spirit and the fool martial spirit were completely enraged. They rushed out and tore the blood-red storm of swords and sabers into pieces like a piece of cloth. His body withstood it. In his spiritual world, Chu Yang crushed all the invaders. Elder Soulslayer used the Soul Slayer Gourd, but could not do anything to Chu Yang. Everything seemed to take a long time, but it all happened in the blink of an eye. Chu Yang survived if he resisted, but he died if he resisted. It was very simple, but also very cruel. However, it was cruel because Chu Yang resisted, so it did not show. Little bastard, you stole the 9 rotation indestructible soul scripture and resisted my Soul Slayer Gourd. You still have to die. Elder Soul Slayer Gourd was furious. He did not stop attacking. After one attack failed, he immediately attacked again. Roar. It was like the roar of a lion. Although Elder Soul Slayer Gourd had a human body, his roar was the roar of a lion king that shook the world. It was more shocking than thunder falling from the 9th heaven. Black ripples gushed out from his mouth, destroying everything in its path. Ancient trees crumbled, mountain rocks were torn apart. The black sound waves were invincible, causing everyone in the Soul Devourer clan to be incomparably shocked. How was this still a sound wave? It was clearly like a butcher's knife that could destroy everything in the world. Moreover, it was a blanket attack. Everywhere it passed, everything was suppressed and swept away. Fortunately, the members of the Soul Devourer clan were not weak. They released their domains in an instant to protect themselves. Otherwise, they would have been caught in the crossfire. Dang dang dang. The 9-dragon bell floated above Chu Yang's head. Under the impact of the sound waves, it was like a small boat bobbing up and down on the ocean, as if it could capsize at any moment. Elder Soulcleaver's long hair whipped about in the wind. His eyes were like those of a viper's as they shot terrifying beams of light toward Chu Yang. Roar. He let out a low roar. Suddenly, a black light flashed in his right hand, and a black scythe quickly formed, flashing with a cold light. This was very shocking. Elder Soul Slayer Gourd had used all of his strength. The weapon that looked like the scythe of the Grim Reaper was pitch black like the mouth of a demon. It erupted with darkness that devoured the surrounding light. The world could not help but darken, and the cold light on it was also very oppressive. Elder Soul Slayer Gourd held the terrifying scythe with both hands and swung it toward Chu Yang, wanting to take his life. Little bastard, you're too arrogant. Today, no matter what price I have to pay, I will definitely smash you into pieces. An elder of the Soul Devourer clan also roared. He was like a sun, blooming with dazzling golden light, making people unable to open their eyes. I will definitely skin this little bastard alive. Kill. Chapter 694. Boom. It was as if heaven and earth were falling apart. The void trembled, the sky shook, and the ground collapsed. The shocking attack seemed to destroy this part of the world. Roar! In the next moment, more people attacked. A black light burst out from Chu Yang's right side, and a black dragon formed by spiritual energy rushed out. It was hundreds of meters long, and the scales on its black body were as cold as metal. It was huge and gave off a terrifying pressure that made the world tremble. Chu Yang didn't have any time to take a breather. He immediately responded. His golden origin gushed out rapidly, and turned into a metal man to protect his whole body. His spiritual energy surged out, and turned into a golden-winged rock. Its whole body also erupted with blazing golden light. It was as dazzling as the sun. Then, it faced the black dragon on the right. Clang, clang, buzz, buzz. Both the Nine Dragons' bell and the array diagram trembled. The Nine Dragons' bell protected the back while the array diagram protected the left side. He held the 7 kills sword in one hand and the gourd of criminal detention in the other. He faced Elder Soul Slayer and the many elders of the Soul Devourer clan head-on with their most terrifying attacks. Criminal detention. At this moment, Chu Yang was completely ruthless. He sent a thought into the gourd of criminal detention. The genius martial soul and the fool martial soul, as well as millions of souls, seemed to have entered the gourd of criminal detention. Immediately, a sense of fear came from the gourd of criminal detention. Buzz. Immediately, the gourd of criminal detention burst out with endless light. A black whirlwind rushed out again, and a huge hand appeared and grabbed at the void. A huge vortex appeared and swallowed the surroundings. In an instant, the scythe in Elder Soul Slayer's hand, the golden-winged rock, and the python seemed to have their souls taken away and instantly collapsed. Whether it was the scythe in Elder Soul Slayer's hand, the golden-winged rock, or the python, they were all true Yuan skills. However, they were not constructed by true Yuan, but by spiritual energy. They all contained the will and spiritual energy of Elder Soul Slayer and the others. When the gourd of criminal detention took away their will and spiritual energy, everything collapsed naturally. It worked. Chu Yang was secretly delighted. He felt that he was too lucky to have succeeded in his desperate attempt. The gourd of criminal detention was indeed amazing. The gourd of detention could directly detain a person's soul. However, this was only possible if there was a huge difference in the strength of both parties' souls. Elder Soul Slayer couldn't directly extract Chu Yang's soul, and neither could Chu Yang. However, it wasn't a problem for Elder Soul Slayer to extract their will and mental strength. Clang, clang. Just as Chu Yang managed to block the most terrifying attack and let out a long sigh of relief, the 9-dragon bell began to ring loudly. Several large holes appeared on the bell, and the body of the bell began to crack. It looked like a piece of porcelain, as if it would shatter at the slightest touch. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Under the fierce attacks of so many people, the formation diagram shattered into 7 or 8 pieces. On the right side, the golden-winged rock that he had killed and devoured the demonic core of the gold rock divine child to obtain its talents. The golden-winged rock that he had transformed from his spirit chi had long exploded. Bang! 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 Chu Yang blocked the most terrifying attack, but he didn't manage to block the other 3 attacks. The terrifying force landed on his body, and the metal body formed from the gold origin splashed like water, revealing Chu Yang's body. Crack! The attack on his back caused his flesh and blood to splatter, revealing his spine. It was clear that his spine had cracked. The terrifying force on his left and right also broke all his ribs, squeezing him to the point that he was about to explode. Puff! Chu Yang spat out a mouthful of blood. Blood flowed out of his 7 orifices, and his body cracked. At the same time, under the powerful force, he was like a meteor, shooting towards the ground like a flying sword. Chapter 695. Kai. Chu Yang plunged into the ground like a sword, disappearing in an instant. The ground in front of him was like a piece of tofu, or a vast ocean. He plunged into it as if he was diving, moving quickly underground. Between life and death, Chu Yang ignored all the injuries on his body. He used his earth physique and his spirit chi to open a path underground. The ground was like flowing water, rippling in front of him. Rumble. Countless attacks bombarded the ground. It seemed as if a layer of the ground had sunk down. A tremendous pressure was pressing down on Chu Yang. Chu Yang didn't have time to sense it carefully. He went to the place where the enemy's aura was the weakest. He frantically moved underground and broke out of the ground. At this moment, he suddenly realized that he had escaped back into the array he had set up. Buzz! Buzz! Chu Yang activated the formation in an instant. Immediately, Elder Soul Slayer and the others stopped in their tracks in fear. At the same time, the two fourth-grade array masters, Wen Yongxi and He Tiancheng, once again fought with Chu Yang over the terrain and destroyed his array. Since Chu Yang had just escaped, the two of them naturally didn't need to waste time occupying the array. However, they hadn't expected such a change and were caught off guard. After a few rounds of fighting over the array seal and the terrain, the two fourth-grade array masters soon let out miserable cries. This little bastard has the soul-devouring gourd and the detention gourd in his hands. He integrated all the mysteries of the gourds into the array seal. He's too much of a counter to us. We can't do anything to him. Their voices rang out. Only then did Elder Soul Slayer and the others see that Chu Yang had already abandoned the soul-devouring gourd. Together with the detention gourd obtained from killing the detention elder, the three gourds of the Soul Devourer clan were all in Chu Yang's hands. Elder Soul Slayer's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. In an instant, he let out a shocking roar. Invisible energy ripples spread out in all directions, forming stormy waves. Elder Soul Slayer, so what if this little bastard has the array to rely on? He's dead for sure. He's just a rat. Let's see how long a rat like him can run. He fled back to the rat hole. He's still going to die. It's destined. The other members of the Soul Devourer clan were also unable to restrain their anger. Their hair and beards stood on end, and their robes fluttered loudly. Originally, they were powerful enough to easily kill Chu Yang. But now, almost all of the members of the Soul Devourer clan had come out. Even a sect or a country could be annihilated by them. But what was the result? Due to their carelessness, they were assassinated by General Chu Yang's detention elder, and even the detention gourd was snatched away. Furthermore, this was after their domineering declaration and tyrannical actions. They had just finished saying that it was up to them whether Chu Yang was a genius or not. They had chased after Chu Yang until there was no road to heaven and no door to hell. They were just about to behead Chu Yang. But, at this time, the criminal detention elder was beheaded and killed. This made them feel somewhat embarrassed. Especially since the criminal detention elder was their backbone, such an outcome left them speechless. They felt incomparably humiliated. It was an unprecedented humiliation. If their ugly state was displayed in front of everyone, they would be too ashamed to face anyone. They would be embarrassed to death. Chu Yang, you bastard. First you killed my big brother, then you killed my second brother. You and I can't live under the same sky. I will tear you to pieces. Elder Soul Slayer flew into a rage. After he calmed down, he thought of all this. His ugly old face was twisted and ferocious. He couldn't accept the outcome in front of him. Ha ha, Chu Yang's laughter came from the array. It was quite gentle, but it was very sarcastic and sharp. You want to kill me, but I can't kill you. Chapter 696. Chu Yang's chuckle made the eyes of the Soul Devourer clan turn red. Chu Yang, you rat. You ruined the great cause of our Soul Devourer clan, stole the secrets of our Soul Devourer clan, and killed our Soul Devourer clan elder and holy son. Even if I have to flip this place upside down, I will skin you alive. Rat. Chu Yang asked in a disdainful tone, as if he was looking down on them. If I'm a rat, what are you? Cats. A cat that was killed by a rat. How interesting. If this were to spread, people would laugh their heads off, ha ha. He ignored his injuries and laughed out loud. How stupid. He had killed the Soul Devourer elder and the detention elder. How could they belittle him? What right did the Soul Devourer clan have to belittle him? Belittling him was just slapping their own old faces. Little bastard, you deserve to die. Elder Soul Slayer roared. Elder Soul Slayer had watched Chu Yang assassinate his second brother. His hatred was deeper than the sea, thicker than the earth, and higher than the sky. Even if all the hatred and resentment in the world were used, it would not wash away. Ha ha. Chu Yang chuckled again when he saw Elder Soul Slayer's venomous gaze, his twisted, ferocious face, and endless hatred. You hate me so much for killing your brother. Your Soul Devourer clan has killed millions of people. Do you know how much millions of people hate you? That thing, are you sure you're a cat? After Chu Yang chuckled, he laughed. Let me give you a death notice. The next one to die is you, Elder Soul Slayer could not take it anymore. He was the first to charge into the formation. At this moment, the many Soul Devourer elders also moved in unison and charged in together with a bang. This scene was a bit shocking. The auras of dozens of people merged into one, and all of them erupted with their full strength, causing the void to rumble and huge ripples to spread out. Boom! They instantly broke into the formation. Chu Yang's scornful voice immediately rang out, "Let's beat the dog while it's down." He pushed the spell formation with all the power he could muster, causing the surrounding mountains to transform into giants. They were like heavenly gods, uprooting mountains, hefting hammers and iron cudgels, then smashing them down. Boundless array formation light erupted from the ground, and the solid ground suddenly turned into a swamp, turning into an ocean. Elder Soul Slayer and the others suddenly felt as if they had fallen into an ocean. The scene was extremely shocking. The earth shook violently, and the void rumbled. The lake at the center of the formation was surging with waves. The lake water seemed to have gone crazy, crashing against the shore endlessly. Was it possible to beat a drowning dog? Elder Soul Slayer and the others were definitely not dogs. Even dogs could drink the ocean in one gulp, pluck the moon, and eat it. The formation could not stop them, nor could it do anything to them. When they joined forces, their strength was too shocking. The array formation was like a cage made of paper to them, and they were about to tear it apart in an instant. Rumble. The attacks unleashed by the array formation were like mountains crashing down from the sky, or the hand of a heavenly god slamming down. All of the attacks were torn apart and exploded. It was as if the ground had turned into an ocean. At this moment, all the water in the ocean seemed to have evaporated. The mysteries of the formation were all swept away by the plough courtyard sweeping acupoints. Mountains crumbled, the ground caved in, and the lake water soared into the sky. It was a scene of apocalypse. The array formation that Chu Yang had set up using the terrain was completely destroyed by the combined forces of Elder Soul Slayer and the others. At this moment, Chu Yang stood in midair and looked at all this indifferently. He didn't move at all. Chapter 697. The 9-dragon bell was broken. The formation diagram was split into several pieces. The path to heaven, his hidden trump card, and the 5 elements chaotic steps were also used when he assassinated the detention elder. The 9 types of true essence and the 9 transformations indestructible soul scripture were also used to resist the Soul Slayer elder. What else did he have? Chu Yang went through them. 5 lights anti-heaven star, 5 elements heaven ring. Unfortunately, these 2 were upgraded according to his cultivation level, so they were only ascending soul realm weapons. Earth fire, wind drill, 5 elements thunderous hand. These martial techniques could not make up for the gap in his cultivation level, nor could they help him deal with the Soul Slayer elder and the others. These were useless too. 1,000 lights and 10,000 shadows are useless too. Mahamayuri Sutra, Great 1,000 Leaf Hands. Chu Yang thought of the first cultivation technique he cultivated when he first started cultivating. Suddenly, his entire body shook. Buddha. With a slight touch, his thoughts were completely opened. Buddha's karma, slaughtering millions of souls. How can the Soul Devourer clan not have karma? Red Lotus karmic fire. These 4 words instantly popped up in Chu Yang's mind. The Red Lotus hellfire was actually 2 things, and not just one type of flame. The Red Lotus was hell. The Red Lotus hell. In the Red Lotus hell, the skin and flesh split like a red lotus flower because of the cold, so it was called the Red Lotus. Yoga Treatise 4. The Red Lotus karma is different from this. After this green, the color becomes red. The skin splits, or 10 or more. Therefore, the karma is called the Red Lotus. Gusher Guang 11, Baltimore, this cloud is a red lotus flower. The cold cuts, the body splits, like a red lotus flower. Karmic fire was the fire of evil karma, the fire of hell that burned sinners. Karmic retribution, evil retribution, the suffering and punishment of the red lotus karmic fire. Buddhists talked about karma. Karma led to reincarnation. The kind of karma determined the kind of fate of all living beings. Reincarnation was actually a metaphor to explain all living beings. The cycle of life and death was never-ending, like a wheel that spun endlessly. The so-called reincarnation referred to the living environment of all living beings in the future. This was the 6 paths of reincarnation. 6 paths: hell, hungry ghost, beast, human, heaven, asura. Among them, hell was the most painful state of life. Hell did not necessarily refer to the physical environment. Sometimes, a painful physical and mental state could be like being in hell. The rest of the hungry ghosts, heavens, and asuras also understood this flexibly. As for whether he could trigger the karma of Buddhism and trigger karma and reincarnation, it was not his problem. It was the problem of the genius martial soul and the idiot martial soul. Haha. Chu Yang couldn't help but laugh heartily. Not only did he find a way to escape and kill the enemy, he even found a way to deal with the millions of living souls and the first transformation of the soul ascension's 3 transformations, samsara. The first of the 3 transformations of soul ascension was reincarnation. At the same time, millions of souls would be sent to the afterlife and reincarnation. There was no better method than this. The first cycle of the martial spirit was the reincarnation cycle. This was the best method. After all, the martial spirit was also a soul. This was a perfect combination. Little bastard, you're about to die, but you can still laugh. It's just a mouse, making random noises. Be careful, there's something strange about this little bastard. Elder Soul Slayer's sinister eyes flickered. Although he hated Chu Yang and wanted nothing more than to eat his flesh and bones, he had to admit that Chu Yang was indeed extraordinary. Chapter 698. What is this little bastard doing? Is he going to commit suicide? Is he crazy? Elder Soul Slayer and the other members of the Soul Devourer clan were so shocked that they stopped in their tracks. Their hearts skipped a beat, and their gazes froze. They couldn't understand Chu Yang's actions. It was no different from committing suicide. They knew very well how many living souls were in the Soul Devourer gourd. Not to mention Chu Yang, even they, the clan leader of the Soul Devourer clan, would have their martial soul and divine soul torn into pieces by the millions of living souls in the Soul Devourer gourd. They would have been annihilated. Boss is finally going all out. In the distance, Little Guari, Little 5, and Little 6 didn't leave. They left because they couldn't defeat Chu Yang. Therefore, under Little 5's lead, the 3 of them discussed in secret and left temporarily. They would attack when necessary. This was the only reason that could make Lil Guari leave obediently. Little 5 spoke again. Little Guari, Little 6, boss is going all out. We should also prepare. No matter what, we have to kill 1 or 2 of them. Yah. Little Guari's transparent eyes were filled with murderous intent at this moment. Hee. Little 6 also laughed sinisterly. They want boss's life, so they will have to pay a heavy price. 1 is too little. It won't be enough for the 3 of us. We have to kill at least 3. What a pity. I still want to eat human brains. Little 5's ferocity was fully displayed at this moment. When the 3 of them sneaked over, the members of the Soul Devourer clan felt that the situation was getting weirder. There must be a demon behind this. This little bastard must be using some kind of forbidden technique. We can't let him succeed. If that's the case, wouldn't it be exactly what he wants if we send him up now? He definitely needs time to use this forbidden technique. We can definitely kill him in advance. While they were still discussing, Chu Yang absorbed all the living souls in the Soul Devourer gourd into his body. His consciousness immediately fell into a deep sleep, leaving everything to the genius martial soul and the fool martial soul. They might not succeed, and they might not be able to make it in time. However, this was his best choice. Kill. Elder Soul Slayer stood his ground and made the decision to charge forward. However, at that moment, Buddhist light exploded out from Chu Yang's body. Wang. The celestial globe universal millstone rushed out of the celestial globe and landed behind Chu Yang. Suddenly, a Buddhist chant resounded. Amitabha. A five-colored Buddha appeared behind him. Ananda and the rest of us withered with karmic fire to repay their debts and become beasts. With a single thought of yours, the fire of karma blazes. It is not humans who burn you, but you who burn yourself. Buddha. Elder Soul Slayer and the others from the Soul Devourer sect were stunned. Then, they laughed coldly and said, Chu Yang, this rat, is he planning to use Buddhist reincarnation and karma to deal with us? What a joke. If the world is a place where good is rewarded with good and evil is punished with evil, then wouldn't everyone become monks? Haha, how can he touch the 6 paths of reincarnation? What a joke. That's right. I thought he had some other tricks up his sleeve. He actually wants to use these millions of souls to trigger Buddhist karma, and reincarnation. How naive. Boom. As soon as this person finished speaking, infinite light and infinite darkness erupted from Chu Yang's body. The clash between the two extremes of light and darkness caused half of his body to be filled with infinite light, to the point where he could not see anything. The infinite darkness seemed to have swallowed him up. The other half of his body was gone, as if half of his body had entered reincarnation and hell. Oh no, at that moment, Chu Yang was like a door to hell. The dark half of the door seemed to have opened halfway, causing the members of the Soul Devourer clan to exclaim in unison. Let's do it. This little bastard can really trigger reincarnation and open the door to hell. If we don't do it now and let him complete the forbidden technique, we will die without a burial place. If he can trigger reincarnation, he will definitely trigger karma. When that happens, we will have no choice but to fall into the 18 levels of hell and suffer endless pain, never to be reincarnated. Chapter 699. Boom, boom, boom. They went completely berserk, but it was already too late. Light and darkness intertwined on Chu Yang's body for a moment before suddenly forming a vortex of light and darkness. With a sudden tug, Chu Yang's body was completely pulled into the endless darkness, and he disappeared completely. There was only a pitch-black hole there, like a passageway to hell, erupting with an endless suction force that swallowed everything. Elder Soul Slayer and the others rushed over at top speed, but they were sucked in by the huge suction force. With a few whooshing sounds, many people were swallowed in. No. Elder Soul Slayer and the others who were not swallowed were scared out of their wits. In their panic, they did their best to resist the suction force, praying that they would not be swallowed no matter what. Otherwise, they would also die without a burial place. How could Elder Soul Slayer and the others have thought that Chu Yang could actually open the gates of hell? This was simply inconceivable, and completely against common sense, toppling their understanding. In that case, didn't that mean that Chu Yang could control reincarnation and hell? How was this possible? This was too ridiculous. Even they couldn't, so how could Chu Yang, who was only at the ascending soul tier, do it? Could it be because of the millions of souls? This was the only explanation they could think of, and also the only reason they could think of. In any case, at this moment, they were completely terrified, and boundless fear swallowed their hearts and souls. Ah! Suddenly, a horrifying shrill cry erupted, and it shocked the heavens and the earth. Lil Cub who'd snuck over was terrified to the point of jumping up and down. Little Gwari! Little Five was worried that it would be exposed, so it wanted to rip open Little Gwari's head and eat its brain. Then, when it looked over, it was completely scared out of its wits. Little Gwari and Little Six were also completely dumbfounded. Ah! Elder Soul Slayer and the others of the Soul Devourer clan cried out miserably, filling the surroundings. They also didn't move, and their eyes were fixed in that direction without blinking. Suddenly, extremely strangely, the clothes on Elder Soul Slayer and the others were all ripped off by an inexplicable force, and instantly, cold sores appeared all over their bodies. His blisters had split open, and pus and blood were oozing out of them. His whole body was frozen, and he couldn't even move his mouth. At this point, they could still cry and shout, but after that, they could only make ah-chio-chio sounds. Other than the miserable ah-chio-chio sounds, there was nothing else. Hoo hoo, the sound of the wind suddenly rose, as if a ghostly wind from hell was howling, completely drowning out Achocho's voice. After that, Little 5, Little 6, and Little Guari were extremely horrified. They saw that the skin of the Soul Devourer clan and the other members of the Soul Devourer clan had turned green from the cold. Their bodies had split into 4 petals like green lotus flowers. This was not the end. Soon, their skin and flesh were frozen red. Their bodies split apart again, splitting into 8, 16, 32, and even countless more. Red Lotus Hell. This is the Red Lotus Hell. Little 5 cried out in surprise. After the initial shock, he laughed weirdly and said, "Boss is indeed boss." His heaven defying again. He actually drew out the power of the Red Lotus Hell. Haha. He laughed loudly and said, "Back then, Grandpa Monkey was extremely powerful. Even when I was chopped to death by Boss, I didn't dare to be angry. I was afraid that Boss would flip out. This bunch of idiots forced Boss into a dead end. They were simply seeking their own deaths, haha." He was very happy. Chuyang was saved. Hee hee. Little Black laughed sinisterly. Boss flipping out is one of the reasons. The Soul Devourer clan and these idiots have killed too many people. Their karma is too heavy. Otherwise, why would the Red Lotus Hellfire appear? Little Guari was dumbfounded. It didn't understand what the 2 apes were saying. Little Guari, watch carefully. This is the Red Lotus Hell. Little Black laughed mischievously. There will be hellfire later. These animals will definitely die very rhythmically. Although it was called the Red Lotus Hell, it was actually the 8 Frost Hells. They were Blister Hell, Tight Teeth Hell, Achocho Hell, Hoo Hell, Green Lotus Hell, Red Lotus Hell, and the last one was the Big Lotus Hell. The Red Lotus Hell was only the 7th of the 8 Frost Hells. The scene that appeared on the bodies of all the members of the Soul Devourer clan just now was actually as if they were being tortured in the 8 Frost Hells. Amitabha. A Buddhist chant rang out. Molten iron flame surged out. Smoke rose where it came into contact with the flames. It poured onto the bodies of all the members of the Soul Devourer clan. Then, with a bang, flames burst out of their bodies and burned them. Chapter 700. Nothing was left. Nothing was left of the Soul Devourer clan. Not even ashes were left. They were all completely burned. This did not seem to be karmic fire. Instead, it seemed to be the souls of tens of thousands of living beings. Their endless resentment, malice, and hatred had annihilated everyone in the Soul Devourer sect, leaving nothing behind. Hiss. Little Guari and the others could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. The karmic fire of the Red Lotus was too terrifying. They felt that the karmic fire did not even have time to perform before everything was destroyed. I will never eat human brains again. Little 5 sucked in a breath of cold air and could not help but mumble. The scene just now had completely frightened it. It did not want to experience the karmic fire of the Red Lotus. It was definitely a terrifying experience. You scared me to death. Little Black was also quite shocked. It also vowed, in the future, I will not be so cruel and crazy. This is too scary. Yah. Little Guari became arrogant and lectured the 2 apes. What did I say before? Now you know fear. Little 5 and Little 6 were actually lectured by Little Guari. They could not help but be speechless. They might restrain themselves, but if they were to live innocently like Little Guari, they would rather have a taste of the karmic fire of the Red Lotus. Swoosh swoosh, 2 ear-piercing sounds came from afar. When Little 5 and the others noticed, they saw 2 black figures fleeing in a panic. They instantly became 2 black dots in the distance. It should be the 2 level 4 array masters. Little 5 was instantly unhappy. We let those 2 bastards escape. I'm afraid there will be trouble. Then what should we do? Little 6 said helplessly. Even if we can catch up with them, we can't defeat them. Yah. Little Guari shouted again. You 2 still want to kill people. Have you forgotten how terrifying the karmic fire of the Red Lotus was? It did not like to kill people. It was fine as long as Chuyang was safe. You're a little idiot. Why don't you remember how the Soul Devourer clan massacred millions of people? Little Black immediately scolded it. Your bad kindness and soft-heartedness are likely to cause many people to die tragically. Take these two bastards for example. If they escape, they may kill tens of millions of people. Little Gwari, you're hopeless. Little Five had to hand it to this little thing. He said, Little Gwari, it's a good thing you followed boss. Otherwise, you would still be counting money for him when he sold you. Why? Little Gwari jumped in fright when she heard this. It had followed Chu Yang and witnessed everything that had happened to the Soul Devourer clan. Naturally, it had seen everything that had happened to the people who had died tragically. Therefore, it immediately gave chase. Little Gwari, are you really stupid? Little Five's head hurt. At this moment, it finally understood how Chu Yang felt. This little thing was really a headache. Once it heard that the two bastards were likely to carry out another massacre, it did not care about its own safety. It did not even look at its own weight. At this moment, Little Six said in a low voice, Boss, this time, you triggered the karmic fire of the Red Lotus and killed everyone in the Soul Devourer clan. I'm afraid we can't hide it anymore. If we can't hide it, then we can't hide it. Little Five was not very concerned. He said, what Boss did before was already earth-shattering enough. This won't make a difference. Little Black thought for a moment and nodded. Although this sounds very scary and terrifying, Boss was able to trigger the karmic fire of the Red Lotus. Many people will probably think that it was the work of those millions of souls. Boss just has some tricks up his sleeve. Hee. Chapter 701. 10 million souls was a very important reason, but Little Five and Little Six knew that Chu Yang had the Destiny Twins' martial soul, which was the most important reason. Without the Destiny Twins' martial soul, it would be useless no matter how many souls you had, let alone 10 million souls. You wouldn't be able to trigger karma and cause karma. Why? Xiao Guari's joyful voice sounded. Little Five and Little Six looked in the direction of its little paw and saw that Chu Yang had already appeared in the air. At this moment, 9 divine rings appeared behind Chu Yang. Each divine ring had a whirlpool, and in each whirlpool, there was a big millstone rotating. After carefully sensing it, they realized that the 9 divine rings, 9 big whirlpools, and 9 big millstones seemed to represent the 9 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, lightning, light, and darkness. At the same time, the 9 big whirlpools appeared in Chu Yang's spiritual world. In it, they didn't see the genius martial soul or the fool martial soul. They only saw a door that had been opened. Behind the door, there was a road, and they didn't know where it led to or where it ended. At the end of the road, there was not only darkness, but also light. The gate of reincarnation? The path of reincarnation? The genius martial soul and the fool martial soul had opened a gate of reincarnation and paved a path of reincarnation, sending the 10 million souls to reincarnation. Little Five and Little Six didn't know. They only saw the 10 million souls in Chu Yang's spiritual world passing through the gate of reincarnation and following the path of reincarnation. The 9 elements seemed to be 9 reincarnations. The 9 basic elements in Chu Yang's body seemed to be reincarnating as well. Sword martial soul. Saber martial soul. Flood dragon martial soul. When Little Five and Little Six were looking for the 3 martial souls, they also found that the 3 had formed 3 big whirlpools in the center of the whirlpools. Not only that, but the broken 9 dragon bell, the broken array diagram, the 7 kill sword, the pentagram anti-heaven star, the 5 elements heaven revolving ring, and the universal reflector were also the same. Reincarnation. Millions of souls were reincarnating. With the help of these millions of souls, Chu Yang was also undergoing reincarnation. His martial soul was also undergoing reincarnation. Even the 9 great elements in his body, the pentagram anti-heaven star, the 5 elemental circulation heaven ring, and so on, were also undergoing reincarnation. This is the first transformation of the ascending soul stage 3 transformations, the reincarnation transformation. Little Five and the others immediately understood. Haha. Xiaowu laughed heartily. Fortunately, I, Grandpa Monkey, am willing to sacrifice myself for you and take care of you. Otherwise, I would have no place to cry. Great fortune. This is definitely a great fortune. Little Six also cried out, this time, I might be rich, haha whoosh. As he laughed, Little Six's soul body entered Chu Yang's mind. Little Guari, this is a dangerous place. Remember to move boss a little later. If the Soul Devourer clan comes back, boss will be dead. Little Five instructed and directly entered Chu Yang's spiritual world. Ya. Little Guari's childish voice rang out. It was very dissatisfied. This was not the first time this happened, but it was not there every time. Ya. After a while, it cried out again. This was because when it put away the Soul Devourer gourd, Soul Slaying gourd, and Detention gourd, it suddenly realized that the 3 gourds had also flown into Chu Yang's spiritual world. The gourds had a share, but it did not. After Little Guari cried out for a while, it left with Chu Yang and disappeared in an instant. The ground had caved in, and the mountains had collapsed. The shockwaves had spread out, and huge rocks had cracked, and huge trees had snapped. It was a complete mess, and it was a scene of devastation. However, there was no trace of blood, and no trace of a great battle. It was as if nothing had ever happened. Chapter 702. A day later, 3 figures flew over from the sky. When they arrived at the place where Chu Yang and the Soul Devourer clan were fighting, they immediately stopped. The leader of the 3 was a young man with an extremely pale face. That kind of pale face was so pale that it was almost sickly. There were 2 old men behind him. They were roughly at the 5th level of the soul reincarnation realm. The one on the left of the young man had a face full of pockmarks. His nose was slightly small. Suddenly, the mountain in the center of the mountain range seemed to be shorter. The one on the right was tall and slightly plump. He had a face full of good fortune, but he only had one eye. The lack of one eye completely destroyed his good fortune. It was as if there was an extremely obvious flaw in a good painting. Wen Yongxi, He Tiancheng, are you sure this is the place? These 2 old men were the 2 rank 4 array masters that escaped. As for the identity of this pale young man, he was naturally the young clan leader of the Soul Devourer clan, Fang Wulong. Facing Fang Wulong's incredulous tone and doubtful expression, Wen Yongxi and He Tiancheng didn't feel the slightest bit strange. Instead, they felt that Fang Wulong's reaction was natural. If they didn't personally experience the scene that day and see it with their own eyes, how could the 2 of them believe it? How could they believe a mere Chu Yang? The rat in their mouth was equivalent to annihilating the Soul Devourer clan. He slaughtered all the elders and higher-ups of the Soul Devourer clan here. There wasn't even a trace of them left. Young clan leader, we can understand how you feel, but this is the truth. When the 2 of them returned, they suddenly recalled the scene that day. The bodies of soul-slaying elder and the others actually split open like lotuses. They couldn't help but shiver as goosebumps appeared all over their bodies. When they thought of the terrifying karmic fire that directly burned soul-slaying elder and the others to ashes, they immediately felt a wave of fear. Red Lotus karmic fire? Fang Wulong's pale face seemed to be filled with anger. His blood and qi surged up, and a trace of blood appeared on his face. He roared, Wen Yongxi and He Tiancheng, are they really the karmic fire of the Red Lotus? Are you sure? The 2 of them still didn't show any displeasure. Normal people would probably be like this, and if it were them, they would probably be like this as well. Because this was really too inconceivable, and also too difficult for them to accept. They said patiently, Young Master, it is indeed the karmic fire of the Red Lotus. That bastard Chu Yang used the souls of millions of living beings to trigger karmic retribution and used the Red Lotus karmic fire to kill Elder Soulslayer and the others. The karmic fire of the Red Lotus, who could prove it for them? Chu Yang? Impossible. What the 2 of them said might even be thought to be the words of 2 lunatics. Thus, they continued to explain, the 2 of us were far away because we were in charge of the formation. That was why we weren't affected. Otherwise, no one would know about all of this. Fang Wulong's pale face suddenly became extremely gloomy. He gritted his teeth and said, Is there really a cycle of karma and retribution? Damned heavens, are you playing with me? Rumble. Fang Wulong couldn't control his anger. Like a wild beast in the forest, he continued to destroy the terrain and roared continuously. Good will be rewarded with good, and evil will be punished with evil. Is this really true? Does reincarnation really exist? Fang Wulong was unwilling to give up. The detention elder, the soul-slaying elder, and the others were his backing. As long as they were alive, he would be the young sect master of the Soul Devourer sect. If they were all dead, he would be nothing. The Soul Devourer clan, even if his father didn't give up, he would have completely given up now. Now, they were powerless to resist. Chu Yang, I will definitely kill you. Fang Wulong was almost hysterical. The sound waves from his roar rushed in all directions. The birds and beasts in the distance were frightened and fled in all directions. It was as if the terrifying person from yesterday had returned. Young master, this Chu Yang must be killed. But now, the key is that we must leave immediately. Otherwise, when the 3 sects and 4 nations hear about this, we will be in trouble. Fang Wulong had just calmed down when Yongxi tried to persuade him. That's right. He Tiancheng also said, young master, we should leave now and go to Emperor Island immediately. The earlier we arrive, the better arrangements we can make. When the time comes, we might be able to kill Chu Yang on Emperor Island. Fang Wulong didn't say anything. He gritted his teeth and flew away. Chapter 703. There were 3 groups of people from the 5 Elements sect gathered in one place. The first group was led by the Elder of Judgment. There were Water Element Peak Master Lu Qianrui, Fire Element Peak Master Song Yangyang, Wood Element Peak Master Cao Rong, Sui Yunfu, Long Face, Du Guangbua, and many other Peak Masters. There were also many Guardian Elders. There were a total of 15 people. This group had originally joined forces with the 4 nations and 2 sects to destroy the Soul Devourer clan. However, the Soul Devourer clan collapsed on its own. Then, they found out the most ridiculous reason the Soul Devourer clan had been destroyed by Chu Yang, whether it was the 5 Elements sect, the Longhu sect, the 7 Stars sect, or the 4 nations. None of them believed it at first. However, after repeated questioning, they had no choice but to believe the unbelievable truth. Chu Yang had used millions of souls to trigger the cycle of reincarnation, triggered karma, and used the karmic fire of the Red Lotus to kill almost all the elders and higher-ups of the Soul Devourer clan. The second group of people from the 5 Elements sect were the disciples sent to Emperor Island. The Saint Child of Music and the Saint Child of Violence were the leaders. There were also Cao Ju, Yin Lang, Jin Duo, Qian Aoxue, Chu Renxian, Li Chengfeng, Gong Shong, and many other disciples. Emperor Island was dangerous. Although the 5 Elements sect encouraged their disciples to seek opportunities, they did not force them. Those who were willing could all go. The Saint Child of Music and the others had heard the shocking news halfway, so they made a detour. Everything they saw seemed to have disappointed them. It did not seem to be as shocking as they had imagined. The third group of people were also the disciples of the 5 Elements sect who were heading to Emperor Island. However, they were clearly different from the Saint Child of Music and the others. They were led by the Saint Child of Burning Sky, and there was an eye-catching young man of 18 or 19 years old. His skin was very white, so white that it was a little sickly. However, because it was so white, his handsome facial features were even more prominent. His appearance was picturesque, and his facial features were very exquisite. Beautiful, extremely beautiful. He was so beautiful that one could not tell if he was a man or a woman. White clothes and black hair. Both his clothes and hair were fluttering in the wind. They were not tied up or tied up. His figure was suspended in the air, and he looked like a god descending. There was a faint luster flowing on his skin. His eyes were intelligent and proud. No, it should be arrogant. At this moment, his eyes flickered as he carefully observed his surroundings, as if he wanted to restore the scene of the battle. However, like the Saint Child, he could not see anything. This was the son of the sect master of the 5 Elements sect. Suddenly, the sect master of the 5 Elements sect had a son, Jun Zhon Tian. His cultivation level was at the 9th level of the Ascending Soul Realm. The burning sky holy sun was escorting him to Emperor Island. The terrain here is very suitable for setting up a formation. This little bastard must have used the terrain here to set up a great formation to resist the Soul Devourer clan. Amidst the silence, Long Feichi's astonished voice rang out, "This little bastard is truly formidable. The array he set up is at least a 4th grade array, which is capable of killing a martial artist at the 9th level of the soul circulation realm. That is to say, he is now at least a 4th grade array master. Let's not talk about other things. Just in terms of the Tao of formations, his breakthrough speed is simply shocking." Long Feichi could not help but exclaim and add on. 4th grade array master. The Saint Child, Burning Sky Holy Sun, Jun Zhontian, and the many people from the Five Element sect, who were originally indifferent, could not help but be shocked. 4th grade array master? The adjudicating elder smiled. "I'm afraid a mere level 4 array formation won't be able to stop so many people from the Soul Devourer sect. It's wishful thinking to destroy the Soul Devourer sect." All the elders of the Soul Devourer clan were dispatched, but almost all of them were killed by Chu Yang. It was not impossible to say that Chu Yang had annihilated the Soul Devourer clan. When the Judgment Elder spoke, the people from the Five Element sect followed his train of thought and could not help but be even more astonished. Wasn't that the case? They could not imagine how Chu Yang had faced so many elders and higher-ups of the Soul Devourer clan. They could not imagine how Chu Yang had killed almost everyone in the Soul Devourer clan. Chapter 704. She was truly surprised. The unforgivable bastard Chu Yang in her mind had actually risked his life against the Soul Devourer clan for the sake of the innocent people who had died. This Chu Yang was extremely inconsistent with the bastard in her mind. The Burning Sky Saint Sun's expression became even more gloomy. He unconsciously gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. This bastard is actually so powerful. Not only did he kill the Soul Devourer clan's Soul Devourer elder and many others, he even stole the Soul Devourer gourd. In the end, he even killed the Soul Devourer clan's members and slaughtered them all. Thinking back to the past, Chu Yang still needed to rely on the formation to suppress him and the Trial Elder in the Five Elements sect. However, Chu Yang had only left the Five Elements sect for a short period of time, and he had already become so powerful that he could almost destroy a sect by himself. Even if Chu Yang had used millions of souls to kill many members of the Soul Devourer clan, this was still incredible. The Burning Sky Saint Sun put himself in Chu Yang's shoes and hypothesized. If he was Chu Yang, could he do it? He couldn't. He definitely couldn't. Not to mention killing many members of the Soul Devourer clan, he definitely couldn't kill the Soul Devourer clan's Soul Devourer elder. Even the weakest Gold Rock Saint Sun would probably be killed by the Gold Rock Saint Sun, let alone kill him. I'm afraid even the Divine Sons can't do this. The Burning Sky Saint Sun concluded that even the Five Elements Divine Sons couldn't do this with how powerful Chu Yang was. He recalled that when Chu Yang had issued a challenge to the Five Elements Divine Child, everyone had been extremely shocked. They had also thought that Chu Yang was extremely ridiculous and overestimating himself. But now, I'm afraid no one will have such thoughts anymore, right? The Burning Heaven Saint Child let out a long sigh in his heart. Such a Chu Yang made him feel helpless and hopeless. All of his anger suddenly disappeared, and he felt extremely lonely. He even thought that the Divine Prince of the Five Elements was definitely inferior to Chu Yang, let alone Chu Yang. Although he drew the karmic fire of the Red Lotus with the help of 10 million souls, how could he not be killed and even draw out the karmic fire of the Red Lotus when facing so many people from the soul-devouring sect? The adjudicating elder thought deeply and couldn't help but exclaim, "It seems that this little bastard is also beyond my imagination. Back then, I had chased this troublemaking little bastard out. It seems that what I said before was very wise." Judging from the adjudicating elder's tone, it was obvious that he was proud of it. Many people from the Five Elements sect were speechless. However, when they thought about it, the Elder of Judgment's pride was justified. Chu Yang had already caused a huge ruckus in the Five Elements sect. If this continued, the Five Elements sect might really be destroyed by Chu Yang. Elder's vision is like a torch, and his foresight is earth-shattering. I am deeply impressed by Elder. Elder, you are a heaven-sent martial artist. You are wise and far-sighted, wise and yet elegant. Every move of yours contains the geography of heaven and earth. My admiration for Elder is as deep as the sea, as thick as the earth, and as high as the sky. Even if the sea withered and the earth collapsed, it would not be able to stop my admiration for Elder. Cao Ju, the Silver Wolf, and Jin Duo had already shamelessly praised the adjudicating Elder, causing the corners of the people at the side to twitch involuntarily. The shameless face of Chu Yang immediately appeared in their minds. Ha ha. The adjudicating Elder couldn't help but burst into laughter. You little bastards are indeed the same as that super little bastard. Thank you, Elder, for putting us on the same level as Chu Feiren. We will definitely go further and further on the inhuman path. We will definitely not disappoint Elder. Hearing the shameless words of Cao Ju and the others, the musical saint and the violent saint suddenly had the urge to beat them up. They were really careless in making friends. The two of them often hung out with these shameless people. Their moral standing would probably be greatly questioned. You little bastards, hurry up and go to Emperor Island. With that super little bastard Chu Feiren's deterrence, I reckon no one will dare to touch you. Otherwise, hihi. The adjudicating Elder seemed to be infected by Cao Ju and the others and actually started to laugh sinisterly. Naturally, his meaning was self-evident now, no one would dare to touch the Five Elements sect. Many people from the Five Elements sect laughed, especially the disciples who were about to go to Emperor Island. However, there were also many people who couldn't laugh, such as Song Yangyang, Lu Tianrue, and the Burning Sky Saint. Some people were happy, while others were sad. Chapter 705. In the evening, the sun set in the west. The sunset glow was like a hand smearing paint, dyeing layer after layer of clouds red. There were even lines of gold on the clouds. In a mountain forest, it was also bright red. In this open mountain area, the trees were sparse. As they were dyed with the golden glow, they also cast long, mottled shadows. Occasionally, there would be the chirping of birds, making it even more serene. Yah. Suddenly, a tender voice rang out from the mountain forest. It was like the joyous chirping of a baby bird returning to the forest. Looking in the direction of the voice, a five-colored little orc could be seen standing up in the mountain forest. Its little paws were behind its back, and its steps were light as it strolled leisurely through the peaceful mountain forest. Its tender voice just now seemed to be saying, plucking a strand of vitality from the sunset glow will be of great benefit. Then, the little beast turned its head and looked at a person sleeping on the side. At this moment, this person was bathed in the sunset glow, and also seemed to be breathing in the bright red light. There was a faint golden glow in his mouth and nose. His entire body was covered in mist, making him appear extremely hazy. Under the scarlet glow, this sleeping person also seemed to be very relaxed. He breathed in the essence of the sun, sometimes exhaling like thunder, sometimes inhaling like a whirlwind. His entire body was sparkling and translucent. The little beast was naturally Lil Guari, and the person sleeping next to it was naturally Chu Yang. It had brought Chu Yang here and set up layers of formations, isolating them from the surroundings. Ordinary people would find it very difficult to discover them. The world was dark red, and Lil Guari quickly entered into cultivation. The faint golden glow of the sunset lingered around its body, and its spirit seemed to be bathed in the afterglow of the red sun. Its little body was hot, and faint steam rose from its body. The sun set and the sun rose. In this mountain forest, a tender voice rang out from time to time. After an unknown amount of time, the tender voice in the mountain forest suddenly became much more intense than before. The sound of the squeaking rang out endlessly. At first, the voice was filled with surprise, shock, and even a little bewildered. Later on, the voice seemed to turn into laughter. Listening to the squeaking voice, one could almost imagine a little thing laughing until its stomach hurt and rolling on the ground. Chu Yang woke up to little Guari's cries. It could be said that he had just woken up from a dream. As soon as he woke up, before he even opened his eyes, a feeling of being in a different world surged into his heart, making him feel as if he had died once and then come back to life again. This kind of feeling was very strange. Chu Yang had never felt so good before, because at this moment, the vitality in his body was too strong, making him feel as if he had already ascended and obtained eternal life. After that, this sort of miraculous feeling was suppressed and crushed into pieces. In an instant, Chu Yang suddenly felt that the world had become incomparably small. He was like a giant beast trapped in a cage. Just his strong and huge body could burst the cage open. He was all too familiar with this feeling of suppression. It was the barrier of the heavens. He once again felt the barrier of the heavens, and only then did he feel that the world was small and narrow. He was like a frog at the bottom of a well, a bird in a cage. Haha, I'll be able to break through to the 5th level of formations very soon. By then, I'll be able to kill all sorts of monsters. So what if it's the sect master of the Soul Devourer clan? Suddenly, his laughter came to a halt. He felt that there was something very wrong with his voice. His laughter earlier was like the boisterous, unbridled laughter of a child. That's strange. Did a ghost appear? Chapter 706. Why did his voice become like this? His voice was too tender, like that of a 7 or 8-year-old child. Hey. Chu Yang was a little flustered and immediately tried it out. In the end, he was stunned. This really was his own voice. Then, he felt like he was wearing a set of extremely loose clothes, like a child wearing adult clothes. He was surprised again. This wasn't right. He remembered that the clothes he was wearing were very fitting. When he looked at himself, he let out a strange cry. How did I become like this? At this moment, Chu Yang's body had become much smaller, like a 7 or 8-year-old child. That was why he felt that his clothes were very loose. Was that why her voice was so tender? Confirm immediately. With a whoosh, Chu Yang stood up, ignoring the restrictions of his loose clothes. His spiritual energy quickly condensed into a mirror and he began to reflect on himself. Ah! A scream immediately broke the silence of the mountain forest. Chu Yang almost collapsed. He couldn't believe his eyes. What happened just now? What did he see just now? Could this be real and not an illusion? He suddenly looked at himself in the mirror again. A very tender face, a very delicate face of a child, entered his eyes. His eyes were big, clear, and pure. However, at this moment, his eyes were wide open and his mouth was wide open. He looked like he had seen a ghost and was about to collapse. Chu Yang was completely dumbfounded on the spot. There was no doubt that his voice was childish. His body was also very small, without a doubt. There was no doubt that his face was just as young and tender. In other words, he had turned from an adult into a 7 or 8-year-old child. Chu Yang never thought that after waking up, he would turn from an adult into a child with a childish voice. Collapse, he was really going to collapse. He couldn't believe it. He couldn't help but look at himself in the mirror again. His face was small, tender, and very smooth. Her tender face looked like she was at most 7 or 8 or 14 years old. Her face was delicate, and she was extremely beautiful. He also looked at his hand that was holding the mirror. It was slender and delicate, white and flawless, surpassing the hands of many women. This was his current appearance. Chu Yang was speechless for a long time. He was really shocked. How did he suddenly become a 7 or 8-year-old child? Why, ha, gaga. When little Guari heard Chu Yang's shriek and saw Chu Yang's dumbfounded expression, it started to laugh crazily. It laughed so hard that it started to roll on the ground. Little 5 and little 6, the 2 apes, also woke up after Chu Yang woke up. At this time, they were also laughing crazily. Their invincible boss, who killed people like scything flax, who was omnipotent, had turned into a 7 or 8-year-old child. What are you laughing at? Chu Yang roared angrily and tried his best to make a ferocious expression, but his voice was still very young and tender. No matter how one listened to it, it didn't have any lethality. In the mirror, his eyes were like Xiao Guari's. His exquisite face was like a jade sculpture, and his skin was smooth and delicate. Therefore, Even if he was cursing and trying his best to make a ferocious expression, he still looked like a little kid imitating an adult's ferocious and ugly appearance. It was very cute and funny. Chu Yang was extremely dejected and sat on the ground. Damn it, he wanted to show the appearance of a peerless killing god, but in the end, it was like a child's teasing. His cute appearance was no doubt. The so-called ferocious appearance had become childish, cute, and funny. This made him break down and speechless. Chapter 707. The first revolution of the soul ascension. Third revolution must be its doing. Chu Yang immediately sensed his own body after the array was disrupted. First of all, the genius martial soul and the idiot martial soul didn't change much. They were both first grade, which meant that they were at the first level of the soul ascension realm. I've entered the second revolution of the soul ascension. Third revolution. Chu Yang immediately made a judgment. Then, he looked at his sword saber martial soul and the flood dragon martial soul. At this moment, although his three martial souls were only first-grade martial souls, they were surrounded by hazy chaos. Chaos chi was constantly surging out from their bodies. Little 5 and Little 6 also had the same appearance. In an instant, Chu Yang understood that the third stage of soul ascension meant that he had also entered the cycle of reincarnation like the millions of living souls. The first revolution was reincarnation, and the second revolution was chaos. The first revolution had been completed, but the second revolution had just begun. After that, the second revolution couldn't be continued because there wasn't enough energy to continue. For example, after Chu Yang reincarnated and became a baby, he only had the energy to make time flow for 7 or 8 years. After that, he couldn't control time anymore, so he became a 7 or 8-year-old child. Congratulations to the heaven-blessed boss. From now on, you're a pure Xiantian life form, a perfect chaotic life form. Congratulations to the omnipotent boss. The path of body cultivation has been opened again. No one can stop you. Chu Yang understood Little 5's words very well. He wasn't a perfect Xiantian life form before, and after transforming from a Xiantian life form into a chaotic life form, he wasn't a perfect chaotic life form either. But what did it mean by opening the path of body cultivation? However, it was only for a moment. He immediately understood. As he grew from a child to an adult, his strength would naturally increase. In other words, Chu Yang's advancement from the first tier of the ascending soul realm to the 9th tier of the ascending soul realm was the process of his growth. As long as he reached the 9th tier of the ascending soul realm, he could return to his original appearance. It's okay. This isn't the worst. Chu Yang thought about the benefits of the third soul refinement, the 5th rank array master, the further transformation of his physique, the transformation of his martial soul, and so on. He could barely accept it. However, when he looked at himself in the mirror again, his lips were red and his teeth were white. He looked like a delicate doll. His big eyes were clear and pure, and they were full of spirituality. When he blinked, his eyes were bright and sparkling. He was once again thrown into disarray. His appearance was very cute and naturally deceptive. Even if he was scheming in front of others, no one would be able to tell. That was because there was no malice or gloominess in his eyes. One could only see that his eyes were clear, clean, and pure. However, in the end, he had turned from an adult into a little brat. There's nothing I can do about it. My genes are excellent and I'm naturally beautiful. This young master is just that handsome. After this, I will definitely become a pitilessly handsome man when I recover. This kind of appearance, this pure and innocent, just like a little girl. If I were to go out and deceive people, I would definitely be able to deceive them all to death. Chu Yang frantically comforted himself and tried his best to put on a very narcissistic appearance. However, when he looked at himself in the mirror again, everything collapsed. He felt extremely disheartened. This was really too stimulating. He had suddenly become a few sizes smaller and directly turned into a child. He had returned to his childhood. How unimaginable was this? Even if he could accept it, would his friends and family be able to? If he met his family, his parents, his violent sister Chu Na, and Chu Fei, what would he do? Also, if he met the saint child zither, Cao Ju, the Silver Wolf, Sui Yunfu, and the others, wouldn't they be laughed to death? Every time he thought of the scene where he explained to them, the shocked expressions of Chu Na and the others, and the laughter that followed, that scene was simply too beautiful. It was simply too beautiful. Chu Yang was immediately thrown into disarray. Then, he roared. No, I have to quickly increase my cultivation and immediately return to my original appearance. Otherwise, I will really become a freak. Chapter 708. After venting for a while, Chu Yang started to ponder. If he wanted to return to his original appearance, not only would his physical body need a huge amount of energy, but his martial spirit would also need a terrifying amount of soul power. Where could he find it? Emperor Island. He immediately had such a thought, and his thoughts started to run wild. With his current appearance, no one would be on guard against him. If he went to Emperor Island, he would definitely be able to launch countless sneak attacks. Hee. Chu Yang was already laughing sinisterly in his heart. Emperor Island would definitely be a gathering place for outstanding talents. He had a premonition that this trip would definitely be fruitful. After robbing those geniuses of their treasures, I will have treasures that can improve my physical body. The Soul Devourer Gourd contains the souls of many people from the Soul Devourer clan and the Thousand Devil sect. Furthermore, their souls are extremely strong, and there will definitely be a lot of pure soul power that can be refined. This way, my martial spirit will be guaranteed to improve. If I don't like them, I can just kill them and collect their souls. Then, my soul power will be endless. Recovering my original appearance is really just around the corner. The more Chu Yang thought about it, the happier he felt. He muttered, if that's the case, I have to go to see Demon City immediately. Otherwise, I won't have enough time to launch a sneak attack. This time, he had to go to Emperor Island. From the Soul Devourer clan elder's soul, he knew that he had to go through Sea Demon City. Sea Demon City, as the name suggested, was related to demons and the sea. Speaking of demons, it had to be mentioned before the rise of the Eastern Wilderness. At that time, the demons in the Eastern Wilderness were noble and lowly. Great demons roamed freely, and humans could only become slaves, food, and thousands of inferior demons. The most important achievement of the great emperor of the Eastern Wilderness was to sweep away all the demons, forcing them to ally with the sea demons. In the end, they struggled at death's door and established a small demon region near the sea. The Sea Demon City was originally the territory of the Monster Clan, but it later became a gathering place for outlaws. Many of the great evils of the Eastern Wasteland all fled to the Sea Demon City. After a while, the Sea Demon City became a town, a gathering place for both humans and monsters. The Thousand Devil sect was not tolerated by the Eastern Wilderness. It was said that the Thousand Devil sect's Devil Den was in Sea Demon City. As for the surviving races of the Demon Clan, they were all extremely arrogant. Among them, the Gold Rock King of the Rock Clan, the Lion King of the Lion Clan, the White Tiger King of the Tiger Clan, the Three-Eyed King of the Three-Eyed Clan, and the Ape King of the Ape Clan were the most powerful. Hee. When Chu Yang thought of these greater demons, he couldn't help but smile. These prideful greater demons were greater demons from the ancient races. Not only would he be able to obtain their essence by killing them, but he would also be able to obtain their talents. The more he thought about it, the more pleased he became. Then, he took out the soul-devouring gourd to take a look. At this moment, the soul-devouring gourd, the detention gourd, and the soul-severing gourd had merged into one. Chu Yang took them out. Immediately, a sense of joy came from the gourd. The three gourds had completely submitted to Chu Yang. This made Chu Yang feel a wave of joy. He said, because of the reincarnation cycle, the three of you have fused into one. Let's call you the reincarnation gourd for now. He then took out the 9-dragon bell and the array diagram. The two were badly damaged, and the array diagram was even torn apart. After the reincarnation cycle, they had also obtained new life. The two had fused into one, and their aura was even more powerful than before. Not only did it contain the profound meaning of reincarnation, but it also contained the profound meaning of chaos. The 7 Kills sword was the same. It also contained the profound meaning of reincarnation and chaos. The 5 lights anti-heaven star and 5 elements circulation heaven ring were the same. However, these two gave Chuyang a headache. They were still only at the ascending soul realm. Now that the reincarnation god had joined their ranks, its level was determined by Chuyang's strength. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.